Now, 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero joining you from now until 6 o'clock today. Plenty to get to. We'd love for you to be a part of the show on the text line and the YouTube comments. And oh, by the way, we've got some Royals tickets to give away today. That is right. Royals have actually been playing some pretty respectable baseball as of late, over the last week anyway, or at least this weekend. And come on, what beats a day at the K? Get some barbecue nachos and a helmet, or ice cream, or beer, or whatever floats your boat.
They don't do beer in the helmet, which is a grave concern.
They should sell for, I'm sure, an ungodly amount of money, the beer can helmets. You know, where you put
the foam dome, yeah.
Yeah, you put the two cans on the side, the straws.
The foam dome.
Yeah, no, they should sell those. I think you would fill up the stadium.
You don't see that so much anymore. We're bringing the foam dome back in 2023, and we're doing it very strongly.
That really is an old school kind of thing, like foam fingers. You never see a foam finger anymore.
No, you really don't.
Bring back the foam finger. I'm a big fan of that.
There's no better way to indicate A, your support, and B, that your team is number one.
Yeah, I want to know. Oh, well, now I know the Royals are number one because they've got the foam finger.
Let's do foam finger night.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
Hey, first 15,000 get a foam finger.
Maybe you, if you win Royals tickets, would like to go to a game on a night where there's a sick promotion. You might be able to do so if you win our Royals Family 4-pack coming up later on in the show today. So be listening for your cue to enter to win some Royals tickets today. We got a lot of Royals talk to get to, in fact, on the program today. We'll play a little green, yellow, red light for the Royals' quote-unquote core pieces. So essentially we'll say, let's give Bobby Witt as an example. Green light is, oh, no, we're full steam ahead with him. He is a part of this team long-term. Yellow light would be, I need to see a little bit more, possibly, maybe. Red light is, no, the buck stops here. That we will see you.
I'm out. I'm selling.
Yeah.
Like Jim Cramer. Sell.
Sell. All my analysts said sell, and I'm saying sell too. We should do Mad Money someday. Mostly because, like, 3 weeks from now, we're not going to have anything to talk about.
An entire show in the style of Mad Money with Jim Cramer.
We'll take your calls live on the air. Give us sports stock to buy. All right, table this. We might come back to this.
Yeah, we may really have to do that. We have entered what is known colloquially in the sports talk biz as the dead zone.
Other sports have off seasons. We do not.
No.
Are we tougher than athletes?
It's hard to say, but yes.
There is a discussion to be had.
Undeniably, yes.
So we'll play that with some Royals core pieces coming up. Also, John Sherman announced today he's going to speak to the media on Thursday. What do you want him to say? What do you hope that he says on Thursday? Probably going to be all stadium talk, but I'm kind of hoping the beat writers ask him, hey, why does your team suck so badly?
I hope that he says he is going to issue me a personal loan of $1 million. That is what I hope John Sherman says at this press conference.
I would take a grant from him for an amount with several fewer zeros. I'd take 100,000. I'd take 10. I would take 1,000. That would do a lot for me at this stage of my life. I will take $1,000 from John Sherman. That's nothing for him. That's an accounting error. 4 o'clock hour today, a rare bottom half of the NFL ranking for the Chiefs offense from the great Bill Barnwell at ESPN. What from the Chiefs offense ranks in the bottom half of the league? We'll get to that and whether or not it actually matters. We'll have today's What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain will swing by for this week's Jayhawk Weekly. Lot to get to in our 580 Sports Talk headlines, including another basketball visitor from West Virginia for Kansas State. Also, I'm going to take a few minutes of your time to bully Iowa State basketball because they deserve to be bullied.
It's something that I've come to learn over the years is that if Kansas and Kansas State fans can agree on anything, and there is not much that Jayhawks and Wildcats can agree upon, it is that it is fun to poke fun at the good people of Ames and Iowa State University.
Yes.
And particularly their athletic department, where they are super jazzed about a coach who had one good year in the fake COVID year where nothing real happened and has struggled to get that program over 7 wins.
And looks like a strength and conditioning coach with tight shirts.
That's the other coach. I was talking about Matt Campbell.
Oh, I was talking about TJ Otzelberger.
Yes, they're both very fun to slander.
Yeah, let's make fun of both.
Yes.
I'm okay with that. Let's just pick on Iowa State for a whole segment.
Yes.
But that is going to lead me to a new debut of Brendan Dorzinski's Dumb Rules. I have an idea for the Big 12 that I think is actually smart, and I think Brett Yormark should pay attention to. So we'll get to that coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll preview tonight's Royals-Guardians game 1 of their 3-game set. And, of course, we'll take your texts throughout the show. Text line number is 785-272-9429. And you can hop in on YouTube as well. The name of our channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. Comment section's open. We're video streaming the show throughout the afternoon today. Let's get to green light, yellow light, red light for the Kansas City Royals. It's like an advanced version of buy or sell, essentially. Because I think there is room for debate, room for discussion, room for growth for several of these Royals players we'll get to. And I think most of the names here probably to be expected, because they're the ones we've talked about so much. They're the ones who this Royals future is really hinging on. So let's start with who I believe is probably the easiest one. And he was the example I used at the very top of the show, Bobby Witt Jr. He is part of, theoretically, he is part of the next competitive Royals core, right? Like that to me is probably the one piece, given his draft pedigree, his baseball bloodlines, the potential, the tools that he has, speed, fielding at the plate, possible major power for a shortstop, top of the line, top of MLB foot speed. That's a green light for me. And even though I think there's reason to be concerned that certain areas of his offensive game have not improved from last year to this year, I mean, he's still the brightest star for this group. In a way, this is like still kind of AAA for the Royals. Like, yeah, we haven't seen tons of production, but look at all the tools. There's still 60 grade speed, 60 grade at the plate. We got to keep him around. I think that's probably the easiest one.
Yeah, it's an easy green light. He's actually had a really nice June. If you look at his numbers since the calendar flipped over to June, hitting 298 after he hit 222 in April and 234 in May. So a big increase in production in terms of his batting average. The on-base percentage has gone up accordingly, up to 355 this month, and a 417 slug. So the power is down a little bit this month, which is interesting. 6 extra base hits of his 25 hits, where last month he had 12 extra base hits of his 26 in 30 more at bats. And we still got some baseball to play here. We still got one more week of June to go. But the thing that is most intriguing about his June numbers is that the strikeouts are way down and the walks have ticked up. Now, they've just ticked. They haven't increased dramatically. He's only walking 5% of his at-bats. League average is like about 8 to 10. And that is still the main issue that Bobby Witt Jr. has as a hitter. He is too apt to try and chase or swing at pitches that aren't in his best interest to swing at. And a lot of young hitters go through this when the contact skill is so good. Like when you can get your bat to the ball and your barrel to the ball, you don't really learn how to walk, so to speak, because you know that if it looks hittable, you can hit it. You can hit it a long way. You get used to doing that as you come up through your amateur career, and you don't learn that, hey, you know, maybe I ought to wait and not swing at the pitch in this spot because maybe I'll get a pitch in a better spot later in the at bat. And if I don't, I'll just take these and I'll take my walk. I'll take my free pass. Now, that is debatable whether or not he's ever going to like walk at a league average level, but the strikeouts have started to come down after they were a little worryingly high the first couple of months. That's a positive step. There are more balls in play as a result. And unsurprisingly, for a player who both hits the ball hard and runs very fast, more balls in play have seen a pretty dramatic jump in his batting average for the month. So he has nudged his numbers back towards league average right now, as it currently sits over the course of his entire, if you look at his entire career body of work, his OPS plus, a number we refer to a lot from Baseball Reference, where 100 is league average, that is his OPS plus for his career. He has been an average hitter as a 22, 23-year-old with improving defense, with terrific tools. Yeah, you still buy in on Bobby Witt Jr.'s future, and I think feel pretty good about it.
And the fact that he's still so young, that obviously plays a major role in that too. To me, the two easiest of all the guys we're going to get to here, the two easiest green light, full steam ahead, they're part of the core, are him and Vinny Pasquantino. I think Vinny is still a part of this. And if it sucks because the sample is so small when it's a 162 game season and you don't even have 3 full months of body of work. But before the shoulder started acting up, before the torn labrum, Vinny was crushing the ball. I mean, he looked awesome to start this year for the first, month and a half or so of the season before the shoulder started to bother him. There's power there. He's got a good eye at the plate. He is a little bit older, but not old. He's not like a 29-year-old rookie or something. Plays a decent enough first base. He doesn't have the speed tool one bit, but offensively, there's more than enough for you to say, yeah, I think this guy could be your, bat somewhere in the order 3 through 5 for a team that is contending for playoff spots.
Yeah, he's a middle of the order fixture for the next 5 seasons in Kansas City at bare minimum. There's no doubt about that. Easy green light for me. The drop in production and performance is pretty easily explainable. The shoulder got to a point where it needed to be operated on. And Vinny, because he's a tough guy, he's a team player, he wanted to be out there for his guys as they struggled mightily through this season, probably played a little longer through that injury than he should have, and his numbers took a dip as a result. But other than that, we've seen nothing but positive outcomes at the plate for Pasquantino by and large, and I think he's a middle of the lineup fixture. Whether he's your first baseman or your DH is an interesting question, but the bat is big league caliber. It's going to play, and just hope for a speedy recovery. Maybe we'll see him in September, but if we don't, still, I think he comes back next year, and you put him in the middle of your order, anywhere from 2nd to 5th, and set it and forget it for the next 5 years.
The position players that I think make this a more that are more debatable, let's phrase it that way, MJ Melendez and Nick Pratto. They're the next two. Let's do Pratto first because there's a little redundancy there with Vinny. Vinny can be a DH. He can be your first base. He will be one or the other. Okay, you're keeping him around. He is one of the anchors of the middle of that lineup going forward. I think there is a little bit of redundancy with Pratto. Now, you can put him in the outfield, although you probably wouldn't prefer to. If he does develops more consistency, develops that pop, strikes out a little bit less, theoretically, you could be set with, okay, Vinny's your DH, Pratto's your first baseman. That's the setup for the next 4 to 5 years. And if that is, if that is what it is, then Pratto continues to produce and gets better at producing, you're probably pretty content with that, honestly. If you don't get a little bit more of that production, though, from Pratto, and the highlight of his season was a completely unsustainable batting average on balls in play over 500 for a couple of weeks, well, then you're going to have more questions about him. I would put this as solidly a yellow, that I see why you'd want to keep him around. I can understand why that's enticing. I am intrigued by what he can be, but I need to see more from him before I know that this team can commit to him being a long-term piece.
The power, that's the thing, because he is going to have to hit for some power to really produce over the long haul if he's going to strike out 36% of the time, which is what he's done over the course of now 394 big league plate appearances. It is very rare for a player to strike out that often and be a plus offensive player. The ones who have been plus offensive players striking out that much hit a bunch of home runs. So Nick Pratto's got 5 in his 212 plate appearances this year. And that's already not enough if you're a first baseman, but it's really not enough if you're striking out 36% of the time. So there is a minor league track record of power.
Yep.
That I still think potentially he has a chance to get to, but if the strikeouts don't come down, I don't know. I want to believe because he has hit the ball hard and he has gotten some good results, and he does walk above the league average. So I think he's got at least a decent batting eye, but I'm a yellow light, and I just worry there might be a little too much swing and miss for him to be an everyday guy. And we were talking about this a little bit. I was on with the mic'd up guys earlier today. We were talking about the defense between Prado and Pasquantino. Prado came up with a really good defensive reputation, and I think he's pretty good over at first base. Outfield, no. Like, it's not. I don't think you're going to make that happen.
That's fair.
So I think it's first base or bust, which means the power has to show up eventually.
You talk about the examples of power from him in the minors. You go back to 2021, he split time between double and triple A, 64 games at triple A, 61 at double A. In that year, between the two levels, he had 36 home runs, 98 RBIs, slugged over 600. Didn't get on base a ton. 385 on base, not awful by any means. OPS was just under 1,000. Like, he was phenomenal, and he looked like, whoa, out of nowhere, this dude's finally taken off. He's exploded onto the scene. He's a real dude. Last year, he had 24 home runs in a combined, what was this? About 550 plate appearances in AAA and the majors. You can live with that for a guy who's still pretty young. You can live with that and say, all right, we like what's here. This year with the Royals, he's so far got 5 home runs and 212 plate appearances. And if this is a long-term option at first base, you got to hit more home runs than that.
Yeah, you can't have a slugging percentage in the low 4s and be an everyday first baseman. Be a championship caliber everyday first baseman.
Yeah, and maybe the better way to even look at it, more than just the home runs, he's got 18 extra base hits in 53 games. That's not going to cut it. You need to be slugging. You need to put the ball in the alleys, especially if you're going to play a bunch of games at the K. Harder to hit home runs, sure. You got to hit doubles. You've got to be able to move guys up more easily, or you've got to get yourself into scoring position more easily. So that's the big concern there, obviously, especially if he's going to, again, strike out as often as he does.
That is an interesting question, though. You can always ask. You look at a guy and wonder, well, how many more home runs would he have if he played in a different ballpark, let's just say. And Kansas City has hurt him.
Yeah.
In that regard, there's no question about it. He would be helped if he played in some other places. He would have more home runs. You can actually look at expected home runs by park on Baseball Savant, and it will tell you how many home runs they should have. Like if you were playing all his games in Cincinnati, for instance, he'd have 18 home runs because that's it's an 18 career home run. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
He would have 6 this year. There's no ballpark at which, well, no, that's not true. In Atlanta, he'd have 7 home runs.
Okay.
So there are some places that would be a little bit friendlier to the kinds of batted balls he is churning out. But the average exit velocities aren't great. Everything is kind of middle of the pack for him, and he is striking out a whole lot. Even though he doesn't chase a lot of pitches, he's getting beat.
Yeah.
And that might be a positive. Like you can maybe learn how to get a little quicker to the ball and stop getting beat, whether it's by premium velocity or breaking pitches in the zone or whatever it is. But he either cuts that down or he's a second division platoon guy at first base. And that's not a great outcome for a first round pick.
No, that's certainly not a good outcome for him. The other guy too, and you mentioned this the other day, MJ Melendez. He's kind of a man without a country right now because he's just bad in the outfield. I appreciate the Royals trying it. I think that was smart business, a smart process to give him that opportunity since he's not going to be catching for you. He's just not good at it. And he's a good enough athlete, he should get better, and maybe he can get a little bit better. But so far in the field, that has not worked out. At the plate, this year has been I think it's fair to say, a major step back this year. Last year, his OPS plus was 99. So that's just a tick under league average. That's good enough. As a rookie, in your first 534 plate appearances, you can live with that. You can say, all right, there's enough here. Sure, we'll work on that. His on-base percentage nearly 100 points higher than his batting average. Okay, we can work with that. This year, everything has fallen off. His batting average is slightly lower. On base, down from 313 to just an even 300, and his slugging has dropped to nearly 50 full points. His OPS is 644. That's 21% worse than the league average. And if you look at his Baseball Savant page, the red dots and the blue dots, average exit velocity, maximum exit velocity, hard hit percentage. He's tearing the cover off the ball constantly, has been all year. And he walks a decent amount, above average walking. For a guy who came up as a catcher, he's actually decently fast. Everything else, though, bad. Expected batting average, bad. Striking out way too often. Swinging and missing way too often. The metric outs above average, maybe you've heard of that before. Not you, I know you've heard of that before. Among one of the worst players in baseball, the 4th percentile. That is really, really bad. And I think it's even more concerning for him than Prado. It's the same kind of issue, like just where do you put them? But if you're already saying Salvy is going to catch, but he's also going to DH plenty of times so we can keep him around as long as possible. Vinny is going to play either first or DH. Prado is going to play either first or DH. Where does MJ Melendez go? Because in the field, it's just not working right now. It's nearly unplayable. So where is he going? I'm still going to put him at the yellow category because last year was so much better than this year. And it makes me feel like, is it sophomore slump? Is he working through something? Is it the position change that's messed with him? I don't know. So I'm not all the way out on him, but he just feels like a man without a country right now.
We just talked about Nick Prado's chase rate, so to speak, which that's the number they put on it. Basically, how often are you swinging at pitches outside the strike zone? MJ Melendez was actually fairly good at that last year. He's backed up to being below average at it this year. And I think that might be the thing that tells the story of Melendez's season and why I feel like offensively there's an element of this that's a sophomore slump. Because, as you mentioned, the quality of contact is still really good. I think he still has a knowledge of the strike zone. It just feels to me like pitchers have been able too often to take him out of the strike zone. That maybe he's trying to do a little bit too much. Maybe he's looking up at the scoreboard and seeing that batting average sitting at 215, and maybe that's living in his head a little bit. I thought that last year he maybe had a better chance than Bobby Witt Jr. to have a big leap in year 2. There were times which you could have convinced me that would be the case. Neither guy has obviously made a big leap forward offensively this year, but I still believe something is there for Melendez offensively. Here's the thing. Now that he's not a catcher, the bar for his offense is higher. This is not unlike what we've talked about with Nick Prado. It's not like what we'll talk about with Michael Garcia. If you're playing at a position where the offensive bar is higher, you got to clear that bar. Then it doesn't matter how good your defense is to a point. Like if MJ Melendez is hitting 30 home runs, you can live with him being a butcher in right field because he's hitting 30 home runs. We're not there yet with him. I think there is still upside in the bat to the point where we don't give up on him yet by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think he's probably trying to do a little bit too much. I wonder if the juggling of changing a position and really drilling hard at trying to get better in the outfield is having an effect on his offensive game. You got to have an eye on the long game here, I think, with Melendez. I don't think I'm going to be a quick fix, but I think, again, the tools are there and it's worth being patient with him.
In terms of types of pitches he's facing, by the way, all this stuff can be found at Baseball Savant. Pitchers are approaching him pretty much the same way this year as they did last year. Last year, 56% of the pitches he faced were fastballs. You know what the number is this year?
Is about the same?
56.3%.
Yeah.
It is almost identical. So he's getting pitched fastballs at the same rate. Breaking balls last year, just under 27%. This year, just over 29%. 2.2 percentage points difference. And that's made up for by facing a few fewer off-speed pitches over the course of the year. Pitchers are approaching him the same way. He's just not hitting it this year.
Yeah.
Which is a little discouraging.
Some of that is swinging at it outside the zone.
Yeah.
Swinging at it in places where he can't do anything with it. So, yeah, that feels to me, if I had to guess, and you never say it out loud, but it feels like a player who's pressing a bit.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Real quick, 2 pitchers I wanted to touch on here before we get to our first commercial break. Number 1, Brady Singer.
Yeah, it's a yellow light right now. It's the sinker command he's fighting, and he's all but given up on the changeup, which is really alarming. He's going to need a big second half for me to be a believer in him being the pitcher he looked like he might become after last year. It just everything is backed up. Everything is backed up. And I think it all stems from, your number one.
Mm-hmm.
You put down the old number one. You got to be able to command it. You got to be able to put it where you want. I don't think he's been able to do that. And I think it's really obvious when you watch his bad starts compared to his good ones. In the good starts, he's locating the fastball. And in the bad ones, he's not. It is just that simple.
I'm red as a starter. I don't think it's going to. If he's not willing to throw a third pitch, I don't think it is going to work for him long term as a starter in Kansas City. I'd give him a chance in the bullpen though. Again, if he's going to stick with those two, if he wanted to be a 1 inning every other day power pitcher coming out of the bullpen with that sinker and fastball, sure. But I do not buy it as a starter if he's not going to adapt to using that third pitch any more than he is right now. Finally, Daniel Lynch. I'm firmly yellow here. I think I need to see more, but I like where it is going. I've made my stance on him clear. I think the stuff is good enough to keep me believing for a while longer.
Yeah, I'm with you there. He's showing an improvement in his poise and his confidence on the mound, which I think was one area. Multiple people listening to the program who texted the show last year, who commented in the YouTube comments to the show last year, all pointed out that Lynch was a pitcher that seemed to not be able to handle it when the wheels started to come off and seemed to struggle maybe with the mental aspects of things. And he is handling those situations much more adeptly, those pressure situations, those runners on situations, handling traffic much more adeptly than he seemed to last year. So I think there's some real progress being made over the long haul. Yeah, going to have to see some more swings and misses, some more strikeouts if I really want to firmly believe in him as a starting pitcher. But I think there's been some real progress here.
Let's take a break. Our first time out of this edition of 580 Sports Talk. On the other side of this timeout, we'll play some Random Question Tuesday. And John Sherman is going to speak to the media coming up on Thursday. What are we hoping he says, and what is he actually going to say? Plus, stay tuned for your chance to win some Royals tickets later this hour. It's all coming up on 580 Sports Talk. little random question Tuesday on this edition of 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. I saw this on Twitter. I don't know if it was yesterday or this morning when I first saw it. I think it was yesterday now that I think about it. What is a stat that sounds fake but's real? Your favorite stat that sounds fake but is real? The one that blew my mind, I actually saw this on Twitter today. Excuse me. Who do you think had more career rushing yards? Bo Jackson or Jim Harbaugh?
I saw this too, so I'm cheating a bit. But yeah, Jim Harbaugh rushed for more career yards.
By 5. 2,787 to 2,782. That was the difference. And Harbaugh played, I think, 10 more years than Bo did. But he had more rushing yards.
That's wild.
It's so funny.
Man, there are a lot of good ones. I saw that Jeff Schwartz had a good one on Twitter today. Since the calendar turned to 2016, the Denver Broncos have won more Super Bowls than they have won games over the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow, that's incredible. That's pretty amazing.
The last time the Chiefs lost to the Broncos was their first meeting in 2015. So they lost the second meeting, and the Broncos haven't beaten them since. But they did win the Super Bowl.
They won the Super Bowl
in February of 2016. So yeah,
wow.
they have won more Super Bowl games than they have won games over the Chiefs. Not to be confused with the Cincinnati Bengals, who think every time they beat the Chiefs, it's like winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So not to get it confused. Here's another fun one. The last switch hitter to win an American League Most Valuable Player award was Vida Blue, the pitcher. That's a fun bit of trivia.
Wow, that's wild. That's incredible. Another Chiefs one for you. Last season, Kadarius Toney between the Giants and Chiefs played in 12 games. His team won every one of them. I had another. Oh, I saw this one too. 2009 was the first time the Atlanta Falcons won double-digit or had a winning season in back-to-back years. 08-09. That was the first time.
Wow.
In franchise history.
A stat I discovered today while playing. Are you in on the Immaculate Grid?
No, I've played it a couple of times, but I don't play it regularly because I do not have the patience for it. Like I get 3 minutes into, God, who played for both the Red Sox and the Guardians? Whatever. Okay, let's just see who it is. Like I give up too quickly. Okay, well, there you go.
For the uninitiated, the Immaculate Grid is the new baseball trivia. And I don't even know if you call it trivia, kind of.
Yeah,
the new baseball trivia craze sweeping the internet, where you have a 3x3 grid, and most of the columns and rows are teams represented by team logos, but you also have some that are accomplishments. That might be 20 wins or 3,000 career strikeouts or an MVP or a 30-30 season. And you have to fill out the grid with a player that meets both of the criteria. So if the square is two different teams, like in your example, the Red Sox and the Guardians, you would have to come up with a player who played for both of those teams. Or if it's a team and an accomplishment, you would have to come up with, say, like yesterday's grid, a Pirates player who won the Most Valuable Player. Now, any of the possible answers work, but you can only use each player one time. Anyway, it's really fun. If you get all 9 right, you have completed an Immaculate Grid. Not to brag, I was immaculate today. I'm immaculate most days on the Immaculate Grid, but I was immaculate today. But I discovered this in the course of curiosity following the Immaculate Grid, because the Royals were one of the rows on the grid today. Mm-hmm. So you had to come up with a former Royal/Red Sox, Eric Hosmer. You had to come up with a former Royal/Guardian. Mine was Juan Gonzalez. And you had to come up with a Royal who had struck out 200 batters in a single season. And I thought to myself, boy, there are a lot of great Royals pitchers. Mm-hmm. There have been some really good starting pitchers. The Royals have been around since 1969, so you still had that era where pitchers would throw well over 200 innings. But they also haven't had a lot of great starting pitchers through like the 90s and 2000s and even in the 2010s. I knew Zach Greinke was correct, and it was. Did you know only 4 seasons, not just 4 guys, 4 seasons in Royals history has a pitcher struck out more than 200 batters?
Wow.
4 times.
That's pretty crazy.
4 times since 1969. The Colorado Rockies, who are the Rockies and have been around since 1993, have had only one fewer pitcher reach the 200 strikeout mark.
I know one of them is Kevin Appier.
One of them is Kevin Appier.
Fulton answered.
Yes, one of them is, and I thought that was right, but I wasn't 100% sure. Yeah. You try, like, if you're a sicko like me, you try and get like the best score and submit like guys who you think will have a smaller percentage of the answer. Because like 97% of respondents knew Zach Greinke had struck out 200 guys. But yes, the others, and I'm sure some of our listeners are probably coming up with them right now. But the others are Dennis Leonard, who has the club record with 244 strikeouts in a season. Then Zach Greinke, then Kevin Appier, then a gentleman by the name of Bob Johnson, who did it in 1970. That's it.
Sure.
That's it.
Johnson.
Saberhagen never did it. Cone never did it.
Wow.
Mesh never did it. Shields never did it. Ron Elvis Hernandez never got there. Jose Rosado couldn't get to 200.
That's incredible.
Mark Gubiza never did it. Larry Gura sure as hell never did. Larry Gura needed like 3 seasons to get to 200 strikeouts.
That's pretty funny. We've got 2 from Vance on YouTube. 1 is, or 3, in fact. I knew one of these for sure. The Bears have never had a 4,000-yard passer.
Yes.
That's very funny.
Deeply hilarious.
The only team that never has. By the way, Justin Fields, 27 career games, 28 career fumbles. George Brett, the only player to hold the batting title in 3 different decades. That's a good one. And the Commanders have not shut out another team since 1991.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
While we're on the subject of sports in the nation's capital, the Washington Wizards have not won 50 games in a season since 1979.
That's incredible. That's some decent teams in there.
They have.
They had prime John Wall and Bradley Beal not all that long ago.
Yeah, and those guys combined to win 49 games in 2017.
Heartbreaking. Do you have a random question for us today?
I did, but I started talking about Immaculate Grid and I lost it.
Well, that'll take us to our next commercial break. On the other side of this timeout, what do we want and what do we expect John Sherman to say when he speaks to the media coming up on Thursday? We'll get to that. Plus, a Royal returning from a rehab assignment. We'll talk about Kyle Isbell coming up after this on 580 Sports Talk. 6:45 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you. Thanks so much for stopping by on this Tuesday, June 27th. Kyle Isbell's back for the Kansas City Royals, done with his rehab assignment, has been reinstated from the injured list. This is the corresponding move for Nate Eaton getting optioned back to AAA yesterday. Not a great year in limited playing time at the major league level for Isbell, but he was sitting pretty well during his, rehab assignment down at AAA, up at AAA. We're going to get a little bit of a battle for center field playing time, or is it Drew Waters until we hear otherwise?
I got to imagine we'll see Isbell. I think we'll see him tonight, and then I think we should probably see him a few times moving forward. We never got around to Drew Waters in our green, yellow, red light segment there at the top, but I'm going to be a red light on Drew Waters. Man, he strikes out so much. And he's a switch hitter with a good glove and runs decently well. I think that's like a fourth or a fifth outfielder. But, man, the strikeouts are just a problem. And it's a reason that the luster on his prospect shine had diminished as much as it had when the Royals acquired him last year. And they have not been able to correct that to this point. But he's only 24. Like, I hate giving up on 24-year-olds. Development isn't linear and all of that. But, man, it's a lot of strikeouts. It's so many strikeouts. 31 in 82 plate appearances.
That is, for those keeping score at home, a strikeout percentage of 37.8%.
That's right.
That is worse than Nick Prado.
Yeah, and decidedly not what you want.
No. He has, by the way, 3 home runs this year in 82 plate appearances. 1 double. Those are his extra base hits. 1 double, 3 home runs, 16 total hits in 82 plate appearances.
Also 1 for 3 stealing bases.
Yeah, that's not especially good.
And at least last year, he showed that, maybe he could draw the free pass. He walked 12 times in 109 plate appearances. That's pretty good. That's above average. Only 4 walks in his 82 plate appearances to this point. So some of that discipline. And again, this could be, like I talked about with Melendez, this could be a young player trying to make up for lost time.
Yeah, that's true.
And expanding his zone and swinging at too many pitches he shouldn't be swinging at, pitches he knows better than to swing at, and maybe starting to develop some bad habits as a result that could take him, a little time on the bench watching Kyle Isbell play to perhaps address. One thing I do know is this. There is no reason that whoever doesn't play between Isbell and Waters on a given day shouldn't be a defensive replacement for either Melendez or Olivares or whoever else is in the corners, because the gloves are legit. Like,
yeah,
I'm a big proponent and always have been of the Royals, particularly in the outfield, emphasizing run prevention. I think that's smart when you've got that big an outfield to cover and not many home runs being hit in your park. I think it pays dividends to have an excellent defensive outfield. Look at the 2014 and 15 clubs who had great defensive outfielders. They also had a bunch of other great things too. That's why they did what they did.
Yeah.
They can't just be great at catching the ball in the outfield and then everything else falls into place. But I do like conceptually the Royals emphasizing outfield defense. And in Isbell and Waters, they've got 2 guys that can really go and get it out there.
Here's why I'm a red on Drew Waters and frankly on Kyle Isbell too. And it's nothing personal for either of these guys. And I hope that somewhere they end up having long, illustrious Major League Baseball careers. I'm sick of the Royals having these players. I'm sick of speedy, great fielder who looks nervous every time he comes to the plate and can't hit. I'm sick of it. I'm done. Get a Major League hitter who plays in the outfield, please. I'm begging you. Like, be normal when you build your outfield. Like, for one of the 3 spots.
Like, if we could have like a Frankenstein type situation with Eddie Olivares' bat and Kyle Isbell's glove,
that'd probably be a good player.
Yeah,
like
would be an average hitter and an above average defender.
Who is like a league average outfielder? There's like a totally normal player. I don't need an all-star. I just need a guy who's going to hit a normal number of home runs, bat like 250 to 270, get on base sometimes, and not be embarrassingly bad in the outfield. That's all I want. That's it. Just get someone like that. But no, you've got a complete gong show in your 2 corner outfield spots, and in center field, you've got Gloves McGee who can't hit worth a lick. Like, please. Give me a 6-hole hitter who you can just rely on to be okay. That's all I want. But we can't have that. That is why I am out on Drew Waters. It is nothing personal. I can't deal with that profile anymore.
Had a texter from the 785 ask about Drew Waters' defensive run save numbers. I'm efforting those right now. I know he's at 3 outs above average in a pretty short time span in center field this year.
That's good.
It is.
He'll take
good.
That.
He's also got elite arm strength.
Yeah.
That's good too. Gets good jumps. That's good. Like he is. I think he's genuinely a good, maybe even an excellent defensive center fielder. And that was always what they said he would be coming up through the minor leagues. The question was always going to be, like, is he going to make enough contact to get to that power? And look, that's not a bad bet to make on one guy, but think about how many guys we're saying that now about in this Royals lineup. That's Waters, that's Prado, that's Melendez to an extent. Like, that's hard. It's hard to roll sevens on a bunch of guys like that.
Right now for the season, Waters is 1. His defensive run save number is 1 for the year. So not splendid, but fine.
Yeah. DRS could say one thing and outs above average could say another. The fielding metrics can be at times a little
almost unreliable just because they're all over the place. They measure different things.
They can be a little wonky.
I wanted to touch on this. John Sherman, he's going to talk to the media coming up on Thursday. I imagine this is largely going to be stadium stuff. I imagine it's going to be, we don't want to bother our friends in Jackson County, and we just want to keep all of our options open. It's not a negative against Frank White or Quentin Lucas or yada, yada, yada. We just wanted to have all these options. Blech. What are you expecting that he's actually going to say? Is it simply going to be that? And is there anything you're hoping he is asked about or hoping that he addresses? Because I kind of hope he says something about, even if it's simply, this isn't good enough. Like, I bought this team expecting to win, and I expect that we are going to get there soon. Even that would give me something.
Yeah, just you want to hear some level of disappointment in what this season has become. And, like, as much as an owner is capable of sharing, like, what's the long-term plan to get this thing turned around? Like, are you still evaluating? Do you have the full faith in maybe some people you shouldn't have the full faith in your front office right now, or in your scouting department, in your coaching department? How well versed is John Sherman in that stuff? I think is a fair question.
Even like JJ has my full support and will continue to have my full support as we look for pieces to add to this roster going forward. Like, something like that would even be okay. Just give me proof that you care that this team sucks.
Yes. Proof that, that you've been paying attention, and this isn't just that the Royals aren't just a real estate investment for you.
Yeah, that would certainly be nice to know. Coming up in the 4:00 hour of 580 Sports Talk, we've got Michael Swain swinging by for Jayhawk Weekly this week. Our What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, and a rare all-NFL ranking in which the Chiefs' offense comes in the bottom half of the NFL.
When I tell you I could not believe it, when I saw this, I could not believe it. I heard Bill Barnwell on SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt last night defend it, and I still don't believe it.
So we'll touch on what the Chiefs rank so low relative to the rest of the NFL offensively in, and whether or not it actually matters, because I think it's very interesting who is behind them and why it might matter for them, and also who's ahead of the Chiefs and why it might matter for them as well. So we'll get to all that. We'll get to your texts. We will get to your YouTube comments as well. But as we head into the commercial break, as we head into the national and local news, we've got a family 4-pack of Royals tickets to give away. And I think, Dan, we're going to go with caller number 4 because the Royals just split a 4-game series with the Tampa Bay Rays. So 785-272-9429, caller number 4, you will win a family 4-pack of tickets to a Royals game of your choosing. We'll tell you who the winner is next hour on 580 Sports Talk. now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. Want to give a shout out to Beth for winning our Royals Family 4-pack. Shout out, Beth. Did she know what game she wanted to go to?
Not off the top, but she gets to pick one to go to, and the whole family gets to go.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, congratulations, Beth, and make sure you're listening in to both 580 Sports Talk and Mic'd Up. We've got more Royals tickets to give away throughout the rest of the summer and the Royals season. We'll talk some Kansas City Chiefs coming up here in just a few minutes. A rare area in which Bill Barnwell, who I think does a great job covering the NFL, actually ranks the Chiefs in the bottom half of the league offensively. Why is that? And does it matter? We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. We've got today's What Is Wrong With You, and Michael Swain of Fog.net will join us for Jayhawk Weekly at the bottom of this hour. We're taking your texts. The text line number is 785-272-9429. Additionally, the YouTube comment section is open. Our YouTube channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. If you have not watched us on YouTube, but you would love to check out the video version of the show, you want to support us in that way, in a completely free way, all you need is an internet connection and a YouTube or Google account. Well, you can do so by going to youtube.com. Just search Sports on 580 will be the first result. You can subscribe to us right there from the search window. Check us out. You can go see our channel, all the different videos we have done, all of our NFL draft stuff, the YouTube shorts. They're like TikTok or Instagram reels, but they're on YouTube. Our live streams, our back catalog of shows, all that, all of our video content on YouTube. Again, our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. We're going to get to the Chiefs here in just a moment, Dan. But first, I have to tell you about something that pisses me off.
Oh?
I just saw this on Twitter as last hour was ending, right as we turned off the microphones to go to our commercial break at the top of the hour. From a Twitter account called Morning Brew, which appears to be like tech news and product news, similar to our pal Jim Chesko, I guess, and your money now. Pepsi is releasing their own condiment called Pepsi Cola Chup. The soda-infused sauce is available to try on the 4th of July at 4 different Major League ballparks: Chase Field, Comerica Park, Target Field, Yankee Stadium. Here's what I say to that. Go to hell, Pepsi! No! Get it out of my face! Absolutely not.
So is it ketchup, but it tastes like Pepsi?
I guess. Maybe it's mixed together? This is gross. So there's even a picture of it here. It's like dark red, brown ketchup.
All right.
No.
Hear me out. Like,
this is filthy.
Like, maybe it's like a spread. Greg Akagi curious.
Greg's in the studio to look at this. Look how gross this is. It's brownish. No, and the squirt bottle is even like a ketchup bottle that looks like a Pepsi can.
Can we get the picture? Can we throw it up on the video?
Yeah, we'll put this on the YouTube stream. Here you go. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube, here's a great opportunity to.
So it's a lot of like it's been a trend lately to do like your own chup, for lack of a better way to put it. Like I've seen the mayo chup.
Yeah.
Out there.
Which you know my stance on mayo. You know I'm anti that.
See, I'm not anti mayo, but I don't like mayo. Like you couldn't make it sound less.
There we go. All right. It's on the YouTube now. Hot dogs better with Pepsi. Introducing Pepsi Cola Chup. No. This is an affront to God himself.
Like, I'm trying to think of what flavor of Pepsi
Crystal Pepsi
would like mesh with the flavor of ketchup.
None of them.
Or if it's meant to taste like ketchup. Is it meant to taste like Pepsi?
I imagine it's meant to taste like Pepsi. Because otherwise just give me ketchup.
It's infused ketchup. So it's ketchup, but it's been infused with Pepsi.
I don't know.
I actually like, this is, I know, a wild take. I don't like, I'll drink whatever you got. Like, I'm not like, some people, my mother-in-law, like if you try to tell her, is Pepsi okay? She will say, no, it's not. Like, I know there are some people out there who are like that.
My wife is at a point where she'll order a Sprite And if they say, is Starry okay, she will order something else.
Starry's not bad.
I saw you had one today.
I got a fridge full of this stuff. My wife came home with, I hadn't even heard of Starry. My wife came home one day with like 4 12-packs. It was $2.99 a piece. It was a great deal. Well,
maybe there's a reason why.
It was, but what if we hate it?
Oh my God. Yeah, Abby will not do the Starry. Not a fan of that at all.
Starry's fine. But no, I'm not like anti-Pepsi. So like the flavor of Pepsi is good to me. There are times I like it better than Coke in some situations.
This is gross. I'm appalled.
Coca-Cola Classic. Vance says this has to be Satan inspired.
Yeah.
On the YouTube comments.
I think he's right.
We've got one request to try it on air from the text line from the 785.
Well, it appears it's going to be limited for now to Chase Field in Phoenix, Comerica Park in Detroit, Target Field in Minneapolis, and Yankee Stadium. If they expand it,
if they got it at the K, we will try it. We'll have a 580 Sports Talk night at the K with Cola Chup. Pepsi Chup.
Pepsi Cola Chup. Gross. Lana Del Rey is going to sing My Hot Dog Tastes Like Pepsi Cola. That's a real obscure reference. I saw this right as we were going off the air, and I thought I have to bring this
Was
up.
that a thing, like people dunking their hot dog into soda, or was that like the chicken tenders?
No, that was hot dogs. That's where the word glizzy came from, when people started dipping it and stuff. I never heard of glizzy before that.
I've seen the hot dog in the beer, which honestly, like, I'm not mad at that. Like, if that's how you want to do your stadium hot dog, is you dunk it in your $13.50 Michelob Ultra and eat it. You know what? I could get with that. Like, honestly, I think that's fine. Not the route I would take, but I'm not going to call security on you if you do that. But I swear it was like somebody dunking their chicken tenders into like a Coke.
Maybe. I don't recall this.
You didn't see this?
No. Okay, Knicks fan gets caught dunking chicken tenders into soda.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was at a Knicks game.
Yeah, the Knicks game.
Woman who dipped chicken in soda. This was 5 years ago. Why do I remember this?
I don't know.
Alexa Greenfield is her name.
Wow. I can't believe this didn't wind up on What Is Wrong With You at the time.
Says she's been doing it her whole life.
Oh, I bet she has. I am strictly, well, I don't drink pop anyway, but I don't like the taste of it. I've tasted it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that taste on anything else I'm eating. This is wrong. This is inappropriate. And I'm not even against like different ketchups. Like, I don't just need pure tomato. Like a good Chipotle ketchup. Ooh, very tasty. This though, wrong. This is just inappropriate. I would call the cops on someone who is eating this. Like, if I was at a Tigers game on the 4th of July and I saw this, I would say, no, this is strictly anti-American behavior.
Trying to imagine an ad for Pepsi ketchup that's like the Crystal Pepsi ad right now by Van Halen playing in the background.
Also note, it is Cola Chup. Yeah, you got to give the full name. Pepsi Cola Chup.
I prefer Pepsi ketchup. I think that gets more to the root of what it is we're talking about.
I think so too. I don't know why. The marketing is bad.
I don't like using chup as a suffix. It doesn't sit right with me.
That's fair. That's entirely fair. Oh, this is gross.
Pepsi ketchup. You ever have Crystal Pepsi?
No.
You're not a soda guy.
No.
Crystal Pepsi tastes fine. It's just weird that it looks like a clear soda, but it tastes like a dark soda.
Yeah, no, I get that.
That's the thing that kind of throws you. You ever see the Saturday Night Live sketch for Crystal Gravy?
Yeah, I have seen that. What's the food that always throws me? I like gnocchi. I don't ever expect it to taste like it does, though. Like, it looks like it should be something else. That's my version of Crystal Pepsi. Like, I feel like this should taste different than what it actually tastes like. Anyway, Pepsi Cola Chup. If you're going to go to one of those 4 ballparks on the 4th of July, let us know how it tastes.
I'll just go ahead and say it. I would try it. I'm not scared of it. I am not scared of Pepsi ketchup. I would try it.
Well, if it comes to the K, we'll be ready for it.
I will do it. I will eat the ketchup. I will eat the soda ketchup.
Even more, I don't know about quite as appalling, maybe more surprising than the invention of the Pepsi Cola Chup. Bill Barnwell over at ESPN yesterday published his list of 1 through 32, the entire NFL, the skill position players as a group ranking for every team in the league. So wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, all together as a collective for every team in the league ranked 1 through 32. And a rarity for anything involving the Chiefs, certainly anything involving the Chiefs offense. But the Chiefs skill position players come in 19th in the NFL. Last year, they were 16th. This year, 19th in the entire NFL. Here is the juice of this write-up from Bill Barnwell. Here's the last of the teams built around one-star pass catcher because he's the best of the bunch. Travis Kelce benefits from playing with Patrick Mahomes, but anyone who has paid even casual attention to the Chiefs over the past few seasons, they need a copy editor at ESPN apparently, has seen Kelce routinely get himself open and create after the catch on a weekly basis. I ranked him as the second best tight end of all time, and after becoming the first tight end in 50 years to top 1,000 yards in his age 33 season, it doesn't look like he is slowing down. They also found an upgraded running back last year in Isaiah Pacheco, who gave them the power back they need to challenge teams that tried to face them with light boxes. McKinnon also stepped up as a receiver and became an unlikely threat near the red zone, more than doubling his career totals by putting up 9 receiving touchdowns. All valuable, all good. And then it essentially comes down to, look, the wide receiver group isn't really all that strong. It's sketchier than the year before, according to Barnwell. The nominal top wideout is Kadarius Toney, who's played 70% or more of the offensive snaps exactly once in 2 NFL seasons. Don't really know what Sky Moore is going to end up being. They're going to rely a lot on rookie Rashee Rice, et cetera, et cetera. I say this giving my full respect to Bill Barnwell because I've said it before. I think he is the best NFL writer, national, just analyst writer in the business today.
I agree.
I don't necessarily, I think he's too low on the Chiefs. I can understand why he has reservations about the receiver core, but I also think for any team in the league, if you were to say they have mediocre weapons in general, does it matter? It matters the least for the Kansas City Chiefs because of who's throwing the ball. That being said, if you upgrade at running back and you've got one of the best tight ends of all time, Barnwell says top 2 all time. I'd argue maybe at this point, top one in the league right now for sure. That's better than 19th out of 32 teams in terms of skill position players.
Yeah, if that's where you're starting, and as important as the tight end position is in the league, if you're starting with the best at that position, you'd have to be really bad, I think, at wide receiver and running back to rank as low as the Chiefs do. And this is not an easy exercise because what Barnwell is trying to do here is remove the context of who is getting these guys the ball. And that is an extremely difficult thing to do because what I have in my head of watching Kadarius Toney play football or watching Marquez Valdes-Scantling play football, I've seen those guys do pretty good things, but I've seen them do those things with Patrick Mahomes throwing them the ball. And in Marquez Valdes-Scantling's case, the other quarterback he's gotten to play with his career is Aaron Rodgers, who's pretty good.
Yeah, no kidding.
So how then do you look at those guys and say, like, strip them of the context of the quarterback that they're playing with and rank them accordingly? It's a difficult exercise. And I think it's one designed to create some debate and discussion. But I scroll down the list because the article puts them in reverse order from 32 all the way down to 1. And I get as high as 13 and I see the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have Deontay Johnson, who I have just never seen it with. I know he scored a bunch of touchdowns because somebody had to score touchdowns in that short passing game and then didn't score any touchdowns last year. George Pickens, who I think is a hell of an athlete, and Najee Harris, who might be the worst every down running back in the National Football League.
Really? You're that low on Najee?
I am that low on Najee.
Wow,
Harris.
okay.
I don't think he's any good. I don't know why he's not any good. Again, you're trying to divorce the context that is almost impossible to divorce. Najee Harris has played behind a bad offensive line, but he has not been productive. He's a 3 yards a carry guy. I don't see it with him.
Okay.
I don't think that position group. Now, I like Pat Freiermuth. Is Pat Freiermuth better than Travis Kelce? No. So, I couldn't rank the Steelers above the Chiefs. I can't.
No, I think that's entirely fair. I'm 100% fair.
And that's just to pick one example. Like the Falcons rank 10th. On paper, like if you like college football, it's probably as fun a skill position group as you can come up with, because they've had 3 top 10 picks they've used on skill guys the last 3 years. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and now this year, Bijan Robinson. Well, Bijan Robinson is a rookie. We don't know what that's going to look like.
He's literally never played in the league.
I think it's going to look good,
yeah,
but we don't know. Kyle Pitts has been very underwhelming, although injury has had something to do with that, and the caliber of quarterback he's had thrown to him has had something to do with that. Drake London had a nice year last year, but is that the 10th best group? You must love Tyler Algier if you think that's the 10th best group of skill guys in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, I could argue that the Chiefs should rank above that. Like, they're much more proven with their position guys than the Falcons are with theirs.
I think what really stood out to me about this list is looking at the very top of it. Teams 1 through 5 are all theoretically contenders. And for the sake of this exercise, please hold your laughter about the Los Angeles Chargers. Number 1's the 49ers. Number 2 is the Cincinnati Bengals. 3rd is the Eagles. 4th is the Seahawks. 5th are the Chargers, which I think is too high for the Chargers, by the way, because I'm not nearly as high on Keenan Allen or Mike Williams as everyone else is, I guess. But those are your top 5. Those are all contending teams, all of them. Go through each one and take off a couple of their elite weapons, and where do they end up? The 49ers take, I don't know, do you just take the 2 best off of each team? That doesn't seem fair because Kelsey's the best receiver the Chiefs have. But take, McCaffrey and Ayuk off the 49ers. So they get to keep Debo. But then
and Kittle.
And Kittle. Well, yeah, okay, their team.
Yeah, the 49ers
stacked.
have some good skills.
They're legit stacked anyway. But still, you take a few of those guys off, what are you expecting out of Purdy or Lance or maybe Darnold, because their quarterbacks get hurt all the time? He'll probably have to play at some point. That team is so stacked, okay, maybe they deserve to be number 1. The Bengals, though, this is the ultimate question with them, right? Take off Chase and Tyler Boyd. So your 2 best skill position players are now T. Higgins and Joe Mixon. Is that a Super Bowl contender to the same degree that they are right now? Like, is that a top 3 offense in the league, or is that like a top 10 offense?
Yeah, if you're replacing those with like bang average guys, yeah probably not.
Takes a big step back. The Eagles, they've got a lot of depth. They've got plenty of talent. Their running back room is kind of by committee now. But you take A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert off that team, Devontae Smith's awesome, but suddenly you got some more questions. If Devontae Smith and Rashad Penny are your 2 best skill position players, right? You did that with the Chiefs last year. You took a top 5 receiver off the team, and the offense got better. Like, and I understand the exercise, and you're totally right. Like, this is not about how good is the offense as a whole. It's about how good, essentially on paper, are these players. And I understand that. But the Chiefs win regardless. Like, they don't need these elite receivers. Whereas I think you look at these other teams and you say, yeah, I don't know how many games the Bengals are winning if they don't have those guys. I love Joe Burrow, but how much are they winning if they don't have Jamar Chase all of a sudden? I think it's a valuable question. Compare that then to the team that's one behind the Chiefs. Did you see who was ranked 20th?
The Buffalo Bills.
The Bills. And that has been a legitimate question for them because Josh Allen is awesome. He's also their best running back. And Gabe Davis did not take a step forward last year. It was expected after that huge game against the Chiefs in the playoffs 2 years ago. All right, he's going to skyrocket up to being a legit number 2.
He's going to be the Higgins to Diggs' Chase.
Right. He wasn't. He was fine.
He's good. We're not sitting here, saying he's trash or anything like that. But there wasn't that great leap forward where you feel like he's a number 2. He's not a 1A.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree with that. And that has been a problem. How many times have we talked to Matt Verderam and about the Bills? And he has said, look, I picked them to win the Super Bowl last year, but it feels like until they add more to that offense, they're not going to be contending.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs are grouped in this exercise with Bill Barnwell with that team. And you've got the 49ers, the Bengals, the Eagles all up there at the very top. But one of these teams won a Super Bowl last year without having that elite receiver. And it was the team that was near the back with the Bills who that is a fatal flaw for them, as opposed to these super stacked offensive rosters.
We have a text from the 785 that says, if our, assuming this is referring to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
If the Chiefs wide receiver room was playing with Tannehill, they would suck. And that is an interesting thought experiment. What is the worst quarterback that you think you could put on the Chiefs in place of Mahomes and still make it shake to have an offense that's above league average and could go to the playoffs? Like, how much could you downgrade at quarterback, considering it's still Andy Reid calling the plays?
Mm-hmm. Same offensive line. And
it's the same, top-tier offensive line.
I don't know where you stand on Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill's old.
Tannehill 3 years ago.
Even 2 years ago, I would say I think that's a playoff team for sure.
Yeah. An older, less mobile Tannehill now.
Yeah.
But like most of the other upper tier guys in the league, like there's the Mahomes tier and then there's the next tier guys. And most of that next tier of guys, you feel like, Rodgers could make it work. Allen would make it
Burrow,
work.
Yeah.
Herbert would make it work. Burrow would make it work. Like, you feel like those guys would. Then you get into the tier of, could Geno Smith make it work?
Like Geno and Dak.
Could Dak make it work?
I think so.
Would Hurts make it work?
I think
I think they would too, because again, I think that the big question for Tony is not ability, it's availability.
Yeah, if he actually get on the field.
Yeah, if he is able to get on the field, be on the field, I think he can be really good. I don't know that he's Tyreek Hill, but I think he could end up, and it feels like the way the Chiefs talk about him, they maybe expect him to be an approximation of that, where he's not a big guy, but his ability to win a ball in the air and his ability to be shifty and make people miss, like he could do a lot of Tyreek Hill-like things in this offense next year, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit. And like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I think is like probably an average number 2 in the league.
Yeah. He's got a role. He's good at it. He's not going to do much more than that for you, but he's fine.
And I think there's ceiling for Isaiah Pacheco, too, if he's healthy.
Yeah.
Like, if he was playing through a hurt hand that was causing the fumble issues last year, maybe there's a little more ceiling for him in his second full season. So, yeah, I like the running back tandem makes sense. But again, would it make sense if Nathaniel Hackett were calling their plays and their quarterback were like, I don't know, this version of Russell Wilson?
Yeah. Might not feel the same.
No. So, do I think that, I don't think the Chiefs have a top 10 group of skill guys. Like, I get why they're not in the top 10, but I don't think they're that low either. I think they're closer to the leagues. I think they're closer to the top 10 than they are the bottom 10.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. Although saying it out loud, I can understand why the 49ers are first. I think that's probably fair.
Yeah, no argument from me.
Let's get to a timeout. We've got What Is Wrong With You coming up next, and Michael Swain is going to join us later on this hour for Jayhawk Weekly. All that's coming up in this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk.
What the hell?
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 It's time for What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday afternoon. Genuinely tempted to make Pepsi Cola Chup my What Is Wrong With You for today.
Yeah, you've got at least one person in the YouTube comments, Gregory, that agrees with thinks it's What Is Wrong With You for the whole year.
Gross. So gross.
A texter from the 913 asked what would be worse, Pepsi ketchup or ketchup flavored Pepsi? And I threw up in my mouth a little bit thinking about ketchup flavored Pepsi.
Yeah, it's pretty. That might be worse.
Be like the worst Bloody Mary you ever had.
Gross. What is wrong with you, by the way, as always, is brought to you by our good friends at Top City Metal Supply. Located on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field, they cut the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal at Top City Metal Supply. Our winner so far through yesterday's show, it's the Slim Jim in the Pants. The gentleman who didn't have a light on the back of his bike and was riding it at near 10:30 at night. All he had to do was put the light on it. Instead, he gets pulled over by a police officer. Backup comes. They notice an unnatural bulge in this man's pants. It's a bunch of extra large Slim Jims. Then they say, hey, can we search your bag? He says, yeah, I got nothing on me. And then they found meth, along with baseball cards and pocket knives and all sorts of other weird sundries in his bag. Dan, why don't you go first today?
We are going overseas to this one, and this is an incident in the skies that occurred June 24th of 2024. The sequence of events began when a private plane coming from Germany into France was detected over the restricted airspace near the Fessenheim nuclear power plant in Alsace. I don't know if that's right. I'm going to mispronounce a lot of stuff
Alsace.
Here. Alsace. Despite repeated warnings from the Air Operations Command, the pilot chose not to respond and continued the flight.
Uh-oh.
In response, the French Air Force dispatched a Rafale fighter jet from Saint-Dizier Air Base to intercept and escort the flight.
This has been French with Dan.
Yeah, I took 8 years of Spanish, man. I'm lost. Anyhow, during the pursuit, the pilot made the decision to drop several packages from the aircraft. He then landed at Aubenas Aerodrome, located in Lannion. After threatening to kill the employees of the aerodrome, the pilot then fled the scene on foot, abandoning his aircraft. Local law enforcement launched a search operation with the support of the Gendarmerie Nationale and the GIGN, which is the National Gendarmerie Intervention Group. In the evening, the fugitive, identified as a Polish national with a history of narcotics smuggling, was apprehended in Orange, 60 kilometers southeast of the aerodrome. Authorities later discovered several packages containing meth in Mars and La Chapelle-sous-Chanac, areas within the Ardèche mountain region, according to the local publication France Bleu Drôme Ardèche. Aero Times sent an email to the French Air and Space Force for comment. Have not received one. So, getting past my butchery of the French language, this guy flew over restricted airspace, ignored warnings and pleas for him to not do that, dropped a bunch of meth out of the plane as he was being chased by a French fighter jet, then landed at an airport and threatened to kill everybody there before fleeing on foot and being apprehended. Not exactly DB Cooper here.
No. I mean, treatment of meth much different in other countries. Like this guy's trying to smuggle it in packages and he's dropping it from the sky. Here, you just like carry it in your pocket. At least according to our stories, we usually get.
On a scale of 1 to like Jacques Cousteau, how's my French?
I'd give it like a 3.
All right, I'll
yeah.
take that.
I took many years of French. Mine probably wouldn't be a whole lot better. And I also have definitely heard worse.
From the 316 on the text line, pardon Dan's French. Yes, please. Please pardon my French.
I've got a quick one here from Ocala, Florida, where Marion County deputies arrested a man for barging into a home and punching the owner in the face last Wednesday. Deputies say that 39-year-old Keith Sherman Jr. forced his way into the Ocala home and attacked the owner because he believed the man's daughter owed him money. Why is that, you may ask? Sherman told deputies he came to the house to buy crack cocaine, but wasn't satisfied with the product and wanted his money back. He was booked in the Marion County Jail on charges of burglary, battery, and property damage.
He should have bought from Young Jeezy. He was much cooler about this kind of stuff. Remember, he said, We ain't tripping. We'll swap it out. If it's still in the wrap, we'll swap it out.
Hey, I mean, that's just good business.
Yeah, it's good customer service.
That's good customer
That's
service.
what you're looking for in the drug business.
But yeah, said this guy's daughter sold him some crack cocaine. He didn't like it, wanted his money back.
Hauled off and punched him in the face.
He punched him in the face. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
He straight up admitted it. Like, hey, I wanted better crack.
Simple and plain.
Okay, well, fair enough. You got to go to jail for that, though. Who wins today?
I got to go with the guy dropped meth out of an airplane.
Yeah, threatening to murder people. Yeah, that's extreme. Does that beat Slim Jim in the pants?
The only reason I lean towards Slim Jim in the pants, one, much funnier title. Two, I don't have to say all those French places again.
All right, fair enough. Slim Jim in the pants. Great story. Good week so far and What Is Wrong With You. That is our winner yet again today, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Michael Swain will join us next on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm
That was vodka.
Dollar signs. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
What a scene in Lawrence, Kansas tonight.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. Head over to Fog.net to see all of Michael's coverage of all things KU football and basketball. He joins us every week on Tuesdays on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Jayhawk Weekly. And you can follow him on Twitter as well at mswain24/7. Michael, before we get to KU today, I need to ask you an important question because this darn near derailed the entire show at the top of the hour. First things first, when you go to a sporting event, you go to a ball game, how adventurous do you get with your concessions? Like, are you a simple, give me a hot dog and beer guy, or do you like to try the weirdest thing on the menu?
Well, I'm not going to try whatever Pepsi ketchup thing just came out.
Okay.
I'm going to jump the gun here. I'm not super, adventurous. I think at a ballpark, I'm pretty traditional. I'll let kind of fancy restaurants or any sort of actual restaurant be where I get adventurous. At a baseball game, give me like a soft pretzel, or maybe a burger. Don't give me any like a hot dog. I'm not a hot dog guy anyway, but yeah, None of this cola ketchup thing. I'm not about it.
Okay, thank you, because I've been thinking about it for an hour nonstop, and it's still really bothering me. Are you a Pepsi or a Coke guy? Do you drink pop? I don't drink pop. Dan will drink whatever. Do you? Well, okay, well that's a little bit of a stretch.
Wow.
You will drink Coke or Pepsi. Do you have a preference, Michael?
No, I don't drink soda, honestly. I couldn't tell you the last time I had a soda.
Okay, well, perfect. That's right. Dan, I feel bad. I didn't have to say you will drink literally anything.
That guy'll drink anything.
Whatever. Pour anything down. Well, Michael, we appreciate the sanity brought to the program and appreciate the time as always. Tell us a little bit about Carter Lavruski, the newest member of the KU recruiting class for 2024.
Yeah, he's another one of these offensive linemen that I think is just kind of fits who Scott Fuchs is, right? Kind of a football junkie who fits a lot of the kind of traits that he looks for in an offensive lineman, right? He wants athletic players, smart players, and guys who just kind of generally love football and the craft of football. And that's kind of who Carter Lavruski is. You look at his background, right? You know, plays football, but also has played basketball. He's done track. He does the throwing events. And so it's kind of this athletic profile that I think Kansas is going to look for a lot going forward, right? You look at Kenny Anene, who I think we talked about last week, and him being a very similar profile. So he's a guy at 6'6". He's probably about 270. He's got to put on weight in college, but I think all these offensive linemen in high school have to do that. So I just think overall it's a kind of a sound addition. I don't think Kansas is going to be getting 4-star offensive linemen because those guys are pretty coveted. So they've got to find creative ways and find really kind of more trait-oriented players that are going to take time to develop. And I think, you know, Scott Fuchs is one of the best offensive line coaches in the country at developing a unit over time. So I think it kind of fits what his skill set is as a coach, and I think it also kind of fits what KU can do on the recruiting landscape.
We talked a little bit in depth about the offensive line last week when we spoke. So now you throw Lavruski into the mix. You have Kenny Anene, I want to make sure I got his name right there, who committed recently. You also have Harrison Utley, the kid from Norman, who is likely going to be on the interior of the offensive line when he gets to college in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. How many more spots are still available on that offensive line for 2024? Or is this pretty much set barring some, super hyped prospect suddenly picking KU?
Yeah, I think, it's so funny with KU, right? I think they're in the talent acquisition business. And you saw it last year, right, with Jacoby Davis, a really talented cornerback, became available late in the cycle, and Kansas made space for him. And so I think barring an offensive lineman who fits that profile, coming around and saying he wants to be at Kansas, I think this probably be it in terms of offensive line commits. You got to keep in mind here too, right? Kansas will only lose, guaranteed at least, right, Dominic Pony and Mike Nowitzki. Now, Spencer Lovell will have a medical thing he can apply for after the year to get another year, but really it's 2 guaranteed players that they're going to lose, and then maybe a third. So really they're in the point now where they're just going to replace the guys that are losing with freshmen, and that's how they're going to keep the scholarship numbers kind of even over time. So I think this will probably do it for offensive line, but again, really with KU at this point in time, you got to add the caveat that, hey, if there's a good player that wants to go from Kansas, they'll try and make it work.
Still in the trenches, but on the other side of the ball, Deshaun Warner, a pretty highly touted defensive end prospect coming out of Arizona. And KU has just been crushing it with Desert Edge High School and the Arizona prospects in general. Warner's a pretty big deal. I know you've been all over his recruitment from the very beginning. Where does KU stand now that he's done his official visit? He was he was in Lawrence, not here necessarily, but you know what I mean. He was there with some of his teammates, some of his coaches. Sounded from all your reporting, Michael, that things went pretty well overall. Where does KU stand as they try to lock down the defensive end?
Yeah, so it's basically a race between Kansas and Washington at this point in time, and I think it's kind of two similar but different recruiting pitches. Washington, this staff that's kind of new there has a very good track record of developing defensive linemen, and they're going to have draft picks, I believe, coming out of this year's upcoming team. And so they're basically selling Deshaun and saying, hey, look at what we've done here, developing these couple of guys, and look what we did our past stop. Come be the next iteration of that. Now Washington has added 2 defensive end commits in the last day. So I think he still would be a take there, but there's going to be a lot more competition than there is at Kansas right now, where you look at that defensive ends room and there's not a whole lot of freshmen or redshirt freshmen in that room. So KU, on the other hand, is playing more of the relationship game, where Jordan Peterson has been recruiting Warner incredibly hard since January. And I think the whole entire staff at Kansas has been really involved in recruiting the Desert Edge High School. You've seen them pull in Jonathan Kamara, a linebacker from the high school, and then Andre Gibson, a cornerback from the high school. And so basically, KU's pitching them on the relationship side of things, right? We have prioritized you. You've been a top target for us for months. And come take up the unique opportunity to come play with some of your friends, right? Not many people get that opportunity to go to a school, have the chance to play early, make an impact, and also play with some of your high school friends. Like, that's just a unique opportunity that not a lot of players get. So we'll see. He's going to announce on Saturday. It seems like it really is neck and neck. I talked to him last night, and it seems very much like he has not made up his mind yet. So this is one of those where I think it's going to come down to kind of the final days. I know KU will continue to recruit him kind of through when he makes that decision.
We're chatting with Michael Swain, covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net, which is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. That's where you can go to find all of Michael's great work covering KU. You can also follow him on Twitter, where his handle is @mswain247. He joins us here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Jayhawk Weekly. When you look at who else is recruiting some of these guys, Michael, and I know that not everybody is, quote unquote, a take at every school. They may have filled up a certain position group or what have you, but you're talking about Washington and Texas and, Oklahoma in some cases, Nebraska in some cases, Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, like big name programs that have had more success in the last decade than KU has had. And KU is in battles or has won some of these battles for highly touted prospects over the last month or so. Do you get the feeling that some of these programs, or at least the people covering these other programs, have started to feel like, yeah, KU is a real player for some of these recruits? Or does it still feel to some of the rest of college football like, yeah, I mean, I don't know that Kansas is really going to be around for these guys long term. It just sort of feels like a flash in the pan. I guess the other way to phrase this question is, how seriously is the rest of college football taking KU recruiting right now?
I think the summer has gone a long way in probably changing that perception. It's so funny. I think the Iowa coaching staff might have created the best moment, I think, for me, just following this stuff this summer, where, Jalen Todd obviously was supposed to visit Iowa and was widely considered to be an Iowa lean. And he decides to shut down his recruitment, not visit Iowa, and commit to Kansas. And I've heard that when Iowa got word that Todd was not going to Iowa, they were shocked and they were in disbelief and basically discredited the fact that he would ever go to Kansas and that it was all just fake. It's very funny from my perspective. And so I think Dak is a good example of how maybe shocked some programs are at the level that Kansas has been recruiting. But I think equally now, those programs are going to look at Kansas when they're in a battle with a guy and say, wow, we have to take this very seriously, because Kansas is very good at kind of figuring out who they want and then really going after those guys very hard and prioritizing them. So I think this summer has probably changed the outside perception of Kansas a lot on the recruiting trail. And look, even being around and in the mix for someone like Nick Marsh, right, a top 150 recruit wide receiver out of Detroit, just being in the mix and mentioned alongside, a Penn State, a Michigan State, right? That's just big to be in that. They're not going to get them, but again, mentioned alongside those other programs, I think just changes the way the KU program is just going to be viewed nationally and on the recruiting trail.
Looking ahead beyond 2024, because KU's had such a good month in that regard, and I know you still have to be in contact with these guys because you have to get them to campus and all of that. But now that so much work has been done for 2024, how much can the KU coaching staff, Leipold, Peterson, the coordinators, everybody, how much can they start working on the 2025 guys?
A lot. And you saw that this past Sunday, right? I think they had a dozen 2025 recruits on campus for a visit. And look, like, the contact rules make it to where these coaches cannot reach out to the kids yet. They can't contact them directly until September. So the way you start building relationships with these kids is by the coaches text the parent or text the high school coach and say, hey, we'd love to have, Johnny Smith come up to campus. And that basically, they come up, they get a campus tour, they spend the day around the coaches, and then kind of get to mingle with each other and some of the current players. And so things like that create very positive early memories for these kids that probably haven't been on a ton of visits yet. And that kind of first strong impression can really help when September comes, and then they can start prioritizing these guys and having them come on campus for games. And then next January when the junior days start, and then this time next year with the official visits, where there's a year-long relationship that can be built with a lot of these guys, where I think if you look at the first cycle, right, they were way behind. You look last year, they were still trying to fight the uphill battle with the record. And then this summer, it can be one of these things where it continues to build. And so getting these commitments early really allows them to spend time recruiting 2025. And I think Terrence Samuel's a great example of this wide receivers coach. They're not taking a wide receiver in 2024. So what has Terrence Samuel done? Well, he's been able to go out and evaluate 2025 wide receivers, and he built a really good relationship with Bryson Hayes from Mays High School. And he's someone that's going to be one of the top recruits in Kansas next cycle. And we're already a year away from when he'll take his official visits, but Kansas is off to a good start with him. And so I think it's one of these deals that in recruiting, a lot of this stuff snowballs. And I think it's building early on to where Kansas can make some waves again this time next year with the class of 2025.
Before we let you go, Michael, I wanted to ask you about the fits from the NBA draft for a couple of former Jayhawks who got picked. Grady Dick goes 13th to the Raptors, a team that desperately needs three-point shooting. Jalen Wilson waited a little bit longer than I think most people expected, but he goes 51st to the Brooklyn Nets. What do you think of the two fits for the two former KU players?
I love them. I think they're great. I think Toronto really is a good fit for Grady Dick. I think you mentioned that they need shooting, and they've got a really good young player there in Scotty Barnes too. And so I think that's a really good fit. I think Jalen Wilson, the Nets are going to need culture guys, right? If they're really trying to rebuild this the right way, they're going to need winners. And I think Jalen Wilson is that. Look, he's not going to play 25 minutes a game, but he's a guy that's going to work hard. He's going to be a team player. And I think that's one of those type of players that can stick around the NBA for years and years, right? If you can play a role, be a good team player, practice hard, and be consistent, that's exactly what you need. And I think that's a really good fit for a Nets organization that really is going to start from the ground up again.
Let me ask you the real question that matters about the fits. Grady Dick's red suit, red sport jacket with the shoulder pads. Yay or nay on that?
For Grady Dick, yeah, it works. For me, no. I think it's funny that the world has found out who Grady Dick is as a human. I think it's been pretty entertaining to watch all of social media learn about him.
Yeah, everybody on Twitter going nuts over his TikTok videos. Like, man, we've known about this since he was in high school. Yep. We've known about this since he was on the U18 USA team. This is who he is and who he has always been. Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net. That's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can also find him on Twitter at mswain247, and he joins us here every Tuesday at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for our Jayhawk Weekly on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Michael, I am absolutely crushed we didn't have any more time to talk about KU Stadium and renderings and grants. We'll have to save that for another time.
Yeah, we're up against the clock. Oh, man.
Yeah, how about never?
After the last few days on Twitter, I think I agree with you. Michael, we appreciate the time, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Definitely. Thanks, guys.
That's Michael Swain from Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. I think to his point about you've got to, you build the relationships, and then you win some recruiting battles, and then you get taken seriously. It's kind of like what we were talking about yesterday with how PFF was rating the Big 12 teams, right? Like, we know, being so close to it, KU should be, should, in quotes, be just as good as last season. But to most of college football, that's 1 year, that's one little speck in a sea of misery for the last 15.
It takes more than just 1 6-win season to change perspective, but they're going about it the right way.
Yeah, process. It's about process, especially when you're rebuilding a program. We've got 1 hour left of 580 Sports Talk, and it's coming up after the news. 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dorzinski and Dan Lucero here with you on this Tuesday afternoon. We've got some Royals baseball coming up tonight. The first game of a 3-game set between the Royals and the Cleveland Guardians. Divisional rivalry matchup. Pregame begins at 6:30. First pitch is set for 7:10. We've got some 580 Sports Talk overtime coming up at the top of the 6 o'clock hour to send you into Royals pregame. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines here in just a matter of moments. Also this hour, we'll preview that Royals-Guardians game. Brady Singer versus a guy who will be making his second ever Major League appearance tonight. No way that could go poorly.
Well, Gavin Williams, to be fair, is a big-time prospect, a top 25 prospect in the game, according to Baseball America. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, be interesting to see the youngster at his second start. I know
MLB.com has him as the number 1 in the Guardians system. I don't know how much competition there is for that spot, but possibly a pretty cool moment for Gavin Williams and maybe for the Royals. They can rough him up a little bit. Also, I'm going to bully Iowa State's non-conference basketball schedule because it is very bad and deserves to be bullied. And I have a new rule that I think Brett Yormark should put into place. That's coming up all this hour on 580 Sports Talk. We would love for you to be a part of the show today. Either hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429 is the text line number, or the comment section is open on our YouTube live stream as well. Find us on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, search Sports on 580. That's the name of our channel. Subscribe to us. You can check out the YouTube live stream, hop into the comments, and let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about in this final hour of the show. Let's dive right on in, Dan, to our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. I will get to the Royals news first to lead it off, since we're talking Kansas City Royals baseball. Some roster news. We'll just call it that in general. Earlier today, we talked about how Kyle Isbell is being what's the word I'm looking for?
Activated,
reinstated. That's the word. Thank you. Reinstated from the injured list. He is done with his rehab assignment at AAA. He is back for the first time since early in April, and he will rejoin the big club. That is the corresponding move for Nate Eaton getting sent down to AAA yesterday. Other rehab news that is important to get to. Brad Keller is going to begin his rehab stint tomorrow at Omaha as he comes back from his shoulder injury. That is good to see. Maybe it's a Vinny Pasquantino thing, right? Where Vinny was doing really well. Then all of a sudden his shoulder started hurting. He wasn't playing well. Turned out he had a pretty severe injury. Keller really did not find the strike zone at all this season, but maybe it's because his shoulder was bothering him.
Yeah, hopefully this is a much needed reset for Brad Keller.
Really, really hope it is. So he'll begin his rehab stint tomorrow in AAA. Michael Massey, due to his finger injury, has been out for a little bit, but he'll be able to take batting practice on field at the K today. That's definitely a positive. Josh Staumont, dealing with a neck injury. He's facing a setback. That is unfortunate for Josh Staumont. We talked about the human level stuff. We talked about that with Jordan Lyles yesterday, right? That at some point you just he's not very good, but you just feel bad for him and you want him to have success because, dang, that's got to be tough to lose and lose and lose and have everybody know how much you've been losing. You feel bad for Staumont, who not that long ago, frankly, was thought of as a top trade chip that that the Royals might have because of how well he was pitching earlier in his career. Has really fallen off, and now a setback with the neck injury. Obviously not good there. Meanwhile, Amir Garrett and Ryan Yarbrough, business as usual as the two of them continue their rehab stints in Omaha this week.
It'd be great to see Ryan Yarbrough when he does return.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking on a human level here because I know the numbers aren't pretty for Yarbrough, but to go through what he went through, to see that terrible injury, that taking that line drive off the head, for him to get back on the mound at any level is a victory in itself. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it will be uplifting to the Royals to get him back on the big club and for the guys to see he's all right. He's back doing his thing.
Yeah, no, glad he's already getting closer to being back. That's awesome. For Amir Garrett, he might not be on the Royals for all that much longer, possibly. So hopefully he's good to go, can get back, and can get back to the good Garrett that we saw for a lot of the early part of the season.
It could be potentially that he works his way into being considered a trade piece. He is a veteran. He's pitched a lot. He is left-handed. That could be something that is desirable. Maybe Brad Keller with a couple of good starts. If he isn't fighting his command, if he has a couple of good starts in July, maybe he's a guy team to call on.
By the way, this I am certainly 100% not making light of what happened to Ryan Yarbrough because it was very scary. I was playing MLB The Show the other day. I was just playing an exhibition game. My pitcher got hit in the head with a line drive, and it popped up and said, your pitcher's been hit with a line drive and needs to be removed from the game due to injury. But, all right, this is a little too real. Like, that's a very scary thing that happens in baseball. There's not a lot of usually, like, scary injuries that happen in baseball relative to football, for example. I thought, dang, this messes dudes up for a long time. I don't think this should be in the game.
Yeah, that's the scary one. That's, it obviously did not pitch at the level that these guys are pitching at, but that was my position when I played youth league, amateur baseball. And that is always kind of lives in the back of your mind. And the way I try to block it out is, well, if I make a good enough pitch, nobody's going to hit it hard enough at me to do any real harm. So if I just make a good pitch, I'll be fine. But that's not always how it goes. So you have to, it's not just the physical stuff you have to overcome in that situation. It's the mental hurdles as well. And so pulling very hard for Ryan Yarbrough to get back on the mound and to pitch well for the Royals upon his return.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
All right, let's keep it rolling with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll go back to last night and the end of the college sports season for 2022-2023. The LSU Tigers, for the 7th time, are Men's College World Series champions, an anti-climax of an 18-4 victory in the third and deciding game of the Men's College World Series Championship Series over Florida. They were down 2-0. And then they started scoring runs and really didn't stop the entire rest of the night as the Tigers take home the crown, their first since 2009, I believe it was. Paul Skeens was named Most Outstanding Player of the Men's College World Series. Dylan Cruz won the Golden Spikes for Best Player in college baseball. When you have those two guys that are going to maybe be 1-2 in the upcoming Major League Baseball entry draft, that means you're a pretty great college baseball team. And despite the anticlimaxes of both games 2 and 3 of the championship series, the drama that unfolded in the rest of the last couple of weeks in Omaha means that was a Men's College World Series to remember. And when you factor in the high-level talent that was present in this tournament, in this championship series, not just Cruz and Skeens, but Wyatt Langford is very likely to be a top 5 or top 10 pick in this upcoming Major League Baseball entry draft. Rhett Lauder, the star pitcher for Wake Forest, the number 1 overall seed coming in, is going to probably be a top 10 pick in the upcoming draft. Maybe one of those guys ends up a Kansas City Royal as they have the 8th pick in the entry draft in a couple of weeks. A lot of talent, a lot of great games, a memorable, maybe an all-time great Men's College World Series. Also, LSU fans drank 65,000 Jello shots. Is drank consumed? Let's go with consumed.
Inhaled.
Really sucked down.
Yeah, that pretty much is how you do it. I guess they have a machine that makes them, and that's how they churned out so many of them. I guess that makes sense.
Yes, they've got like little Jello shot machines.
Technology, man, isn't it great? That was a pretty incredible last 2 games of the event that Florida just obliterated LSU, and then LSU came back and essentially did the same thing.
Yeah, funny thing about baseball, isn't it? Momentum's only as good as your starting pitcher the next day.
I was a little bummed Skeens didn't pitch yesterday. I was kind of hoping he'd come in and...
Yeah, you were hoping for that climactic moment. Like, okay, like when is... like, not to bring up bad memories for Royals fans, but it felt like Madison Bumgarner lurking in Game 7 in 2014. Like, all right, when is the big bad wolf going to come out of the bullpen? And they need him because they were up by 14 runs.
He got an ovation walking to the bullpen from the dugout.
Yeah, it was a cool moment.
It was awesome.
It was also 10-2 at the time. They didn't need him.
Yeah. Unless there's a real disaster, that's a situation where we hope we don't need him.
And I'm glad they didn't have to use him for his sake because he threw 120 some pitches 3 days prior.
Yeah, that's a lot. There's not as many restrictions as like you'd get in other levels of baseball on pitching in the College World Series or just in college baseball in general. Like, they're going to pitch you. You're going to, it's not like it's not like the minors, right? Like college football is the minor leagues for the NFL. Minor league baseball is minor league baseball. If you're playing college baseball, you're trying to win.
Yes. Development and pitcher health is very, very secondary.
Hey, good for LSU, though. Congratulations. Now 7 national titles, second most only behind USC, I believe.
Pretty cool team. Like, yeah, a lot of really great players. Like we mentioned, the guys who are going to go 1-2 in the draft. But Tommy Tanks, one of the more fun hitters to watch in college baseball. Cade Beloso looks like he owns and operates like several successful radiator repair shops in Greater Baton Rouge. Like, he looks like 35-year-old auto mechanic.
It's a sport that has a lot of personality. College baseball always, I mean, there's always guys doing goofy things, and there's
lots of celebrating, lots of emotion in college baseball, and teams don't make much of an effort to tamp that down anymore. Like, if a major leaguer tried to do some of the stuff that college baseball players do in like celebrating like a leadoff double or scoring the first run of the game in the second inning, they would maybe have to duck the next time they came to play. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying there's a cultural difference in college baseball. And I don't mind guys getting excited. I don't. Like, as a general rule, I am not so old school, stick in the mud, that I don't think it's okay to have emotions as an athlete and to be excited when you accomplish something in a big game at a high level, especially in baseball, because baseball is a game of failure, right? Like, that is a game where you fail more often than you succeed. So when you succeed, I think you have the right to be excited about it, to celebrate with your teammates, be as creative as you want. I say that, and even I sometimes watch college baseball. I'm like, a little too much dip on your chip, kids. Maybe ratchet it back a notch. Maybe instead of going all the way to 11 here in like the 4th inning, maybe leave it on like 8 or 9.
No, I know what you mean. I'm right there with you. But hey,
a little too much dip on the chip is all I'm saying.
When you win a game like that, though, it's all right. You get to celebrate after a win like that.
And if you don't like it, what I always said when I play, if I don't like it, then I got to beat you the next time.
That's how I always felt about the court storming or the field storming. You don't like, KU, you go on the road, you don't like that a team stormed the court on you, don't lose the game. You go figure out a way to win.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's always how it stands out to me. Next up on today's 580 Sports Talk headlines, an update on some K-State visitors from the transfer portal. How did we agree on the pronunciation for Muhammad?
I thought it was Wagyu.
Wagyu? All right, we'll go with Wagyu.
Wagyu.
Yeah, I thought it was Wagyu. I thought that's what we said. That's what we're going to stick with until someone tells us differently. Muhammad Wagyu, though, big man from West Virginia. He is in the transfer portal. He is going to visit Kansas State following a visit with DePaul. That is where he is right now. Reserve big man. I mean, this is not a guy who is going to be a huge contributor in all likelihood. Last season for West Virginia, 4.1 points, 3.1 rebounds a game, especially efficient at the rim, shot 74%. He's not stepping out very often. He's 6'10". He's got several years of eligibility remaining, though. A nice backup piece. I don't think this would be anything that is, earth-shattering. He probably would play a bigger role if he went to DePaul. They're a little bit more talent devoid than Kansas State is. So interesting to note, though, K-State is getting a visit from him. Additionally, according to John Rothstein from CBS Sports, among other places, who initially reported Joe Toussaint's visit to K-State, he adds that Toussaint has told him he may also visit Nebraska and Fred Hoiberg. Hoiberg, we remember from his Iowa State days, always a big fan of transfers. Now with the portal, even easier. Nebraska has built a lot of its roster through the transfer portal. And again, it might be another spot where Toussaint gets to have a little bit of a bigger role, maybe a more likely starting opportunity than he would get at K-State.
So I've just looked at the media guide for West Virginia basketball. It is Waggy.
Waggy. Okay.
Waggy. I thought I heard, now sometimes I get it wrong on TV, but I could have sworn I heard it on TV once as Wagyu, but it's Waggy.
All right.
So
Muhammad
Waggy.
All right. Well, that's good to know.
Is the young man's name. And if he does commit to K-State, we will get it right. Also, next year's West Virginia basketball media guide is going to be the size of like one of those religious tracts you get on the street, because all this is look how great Bob Huggins is. Like, it's 60 pages of Bob Huggins, and then you get to the rest of the team.
That's not great.
Next year's is going to be like, Nothing.
SID and support staff for West Virginia basketball just cursing. God dang it. Why, Bob? But yes, that's your update on K-State basketball visits.
Think of the printing costs they save.
That's true. That's going to save a lot of money for this little tract. I had never seen one of those in person. When my wife moved into her last apartment before we moved in together, her first day living there, she went to her mailbox and saw multiple ones of those in her mail. And it was kind of weird, but I was kind of fascinated by them. I'd never seen them before.
Yeah, they there were some people with them posted up. I've seen they were outside the Alamo Dome, the Final Four 2018.
Oh yeah. And
when I was on vacation last week, they were posted up under the bridge between one side of Madeira Beach and the Johns Pass Boardwalk area. And they were set up, but they were talking to each other. They were making no attempt to hand out their pamphlets.
Hey, sometimes you got a job to do and you just don't want to do it. You just have to show up and look like you're doing your job. Oh, we've all been there at some point.
that is a fact. Next headline for me here on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. NFL is big business overseas. If you were looking to get tickets for the Dolphins-Chiefs game in Frankfurt, November 5th, hope you jumped on it early because they sold out in 15 minutes. Now, of course, this is a Ticketmaster issue. Ticketmaster handling these tickets.
Of course.
We all my homies hate Ticketmaster. I think somebody actually released an album called All My Homies Hate Ticketmaster.
Zach Bryan, who I just heard of last year, a little bit earlier than this time. My wife's a huge fan. I've gotten really into him. Country artist, but not I drank beer in the back of my truck and I had sex with my wife and my dog was there. Not that kind of country music.
Yeah, hat, truck, short beach.
Yeah. No, this is more I was in the military and I grew up in rural Oklahoma.
Okay.
More authentic country music, I would say.
That real. He's spitting that real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big football fan, by the way. I think he's a Bengals fan, even though he's from Oklahoma. Anyway, beside the point. He has a live album called All My Homies Hate Ticketmaster.
Yeah, I had heard the album existed, but I couldn't place the artist. Anyhow, fans on social media per NBC Sports Pro Football Talk expressed frustration with the process for getting tickets, with some reporting that when they logged on to Ticketmaster, they received a message showing that more than 1 million people were ahead of them in the queue. Official resale will begin July 12th, and you can bet tickets will be extraordinarily expensive. 15 minutes to sell out for Chiefs Dolphins in Frankfurt.
The crowd at last year's Germany game was awesome. There was chanting all game and it was a full house. We've talked about this before. The folks in Germany really like football. There is a big time NFL fan base there.
And they had it was the Seahawks, right? It was Seahawks Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Was the Germany game last year. So weirdly, there's a big Seahawks following in Germany and also a big Tom Brady following, which makes a little more sense.
Oh, yeah.
So the combination ended up being, nuclear crowd. And I expect it'll be a really good crowd for Dolphins Chiefs as well.
Oh, yeah. Tom Brady, obviously, big deal, the greatest of all time. Yeah, I get that. But he was on the way out. You know who is currently at the top and is going to be there for a long time? The guy they're going to see this year, Patrick Mahomes. That is going to be awesome. Really can't wait for that. Next headline for me, and I hate to bring things down because it's been a fun show, been a fun segment, but some really tragic news coming out of Florida. Ryan Mallett, the longtime NFL backup, at one point a big-time recruit in college football, started his career at Michigan before spending 2 seasons as the starting quarterback for the Arkansas Razorbacks, tragically died this week in a drowning accident in Florida. He was transported to a local hospital from the beach, but was pronounced dead at the hospital. He had been a head football coach at Whitehall High School in Arkansas, who had been hired last winter. So he was going into year number 2 there. Just horribly, horribly sad. Mallett was a dang good college quarterback. His 2 years at Arkansas threw for 30 touchdowns each season, 30 in 2009, 32 in 2010, went to a bowl game as a starter both at Michigan and his 2 years at Arkansas.
He was a monster recruit, 5-star recruit.
Yeah.
He was as highly coveted as any quarterback of his era coming out of high school.
I remember that was one of the first guys that I remember, because I didn't really follow recruiting when I was 13 years old. But I remember when Ryan Mallett debuted at Michigan, it was a big, big deal. And he was in the NFL, actually not quite as long as I thought he was. 2012 through 2017, played for a handful of different teams, backed up Joe Flacco in Baltimore for a few years, also had stints in Houston and in New England before he retired or wasn't signed following the 2017 season. Very, very tragic. I don't mean to get too high up on a soapbox right now. I feel like we have more of these stories every year of like water accidents. I mean, Peyton Hillis has been in the news recently because he saved his own children and a bystander, I believe, in a near drowning incident.
Yeah, and almost cost him his own life. Yeah.
Obviously, around here, Joe Delaney, that still rings true many years later. Be careful when, this time of year, a lot of people at the beach or at lakes or taking trips or whatever it might be. Please be safe. Please be careful. Don't know the details of this case, but obviously very tragic. And if you are going to spend any time around the water, please take proper precautions so that nothing bad happens to you or your loved ones. But Ryan Mallett tragically passing away at just 35 years old.
Very, very sad stuff. Unfortunately, that's where we're going to leave 5A Sports Talk headlines, unless you want to get really into the weeds in the NHL draft. That's tomorrow night.
No.
Actually, no, that's Thursday night. I'm sorry.
I told you earlier.
I'm so excited for it. I got ahead of myself.
Clearly. That I know one thing about the draft. Connor Bedard is going to be a Blackhawk. And that is it. That's all I can offer you.
That's all I got for you, too.
On the NHL draft. That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, Iowa State basketball's non-conference schedule is garbage. I'm going to make fun of it. I've also got a rule for you that I think if the Big 12 wants to really steer into the we're going to be better at basketball than everybody, we're going to let you know about it bit, that they should implement. I'll tell you what that rule is next on 580 Sports Talk.
Life Gear provides.
6:31 on 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. He's Dan. We've got some 580 Sports Talk overtime coming up at the top of the 6 o'clock hour, leading you into Royals baseball against the Cleveland Guardians today. The Division I teams in our state for basketball, specifically KU, K-State, they play a certain caliber of non-conference opponent every year, specifically KU. Like KU every year plays a tough non-conference schedule.
It doesn't
One of the
mean-
best in the country.
Yeah, doesn't mean every game is tough, because I can already hear people go, well, what about when you had Southern Utah or UTEP or whatever it is? Well, yeah, everybody schedules some of those games, but Kansas does make an effort, and they do get scheduled into like top tier, like MTEs, multi-team events that give them tough games. Like they get to Maui or the Bahamas every year. They got the Champions Classic, obviously, so that's one really good opponent. And they get a tough team in the Big East Challenge, and they endeavor to schedule some other difficult games as well that I think benefit them for the long haul and behoove them, and as a power program, as a blue blood program.
Like this year, and they're not all at home. Some are neutral, some are away. Kentucky, one of the deepest Maui Invitational fields I have ever seen. UConn, Missouri, Indiana, Wichita State. That's a pretty good non-conference schedule.
Yeah.
K-State, which, in fairness, during the Bruce Weber years, did not always have a great non-conference schedule, often because it was, hey, let's pad the wins a little bit, especially in those later years.
Oftentimes it proved to be too strong. Shout out to Northern Colorado.
But this year, K-State going to play USC in a neutral site game to open the season. Their MTE, they'll play Providence. Not bad.
Good program.
Either Georgia or Miami. They end up playing Miami. That's a pretty good game on the schedule right there. They've got Villanova. They've got Nebraska, which is trying to get to respectability.
Yeah.
They're not quite as bad as they were a couple years ago.
Nice way to put it.
And then Wichita State as well. They'll play this year at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Better than it was even just a few years ago. Iowa State recently, and I missed this when it came out, Iowa State released its non-conference basketball schedule. They have a preseason tournament. They'll play in the ESPN Invitational in Orlando, and they're going to go on the road to face DePaul, okay, the worst team in the Big East. Those are their only games away from home. Here's who else they face. Green Bay, Lindenwood, which was Division II less than 4 years ago because they're still in the transition phase, Idaho State, Grambling State, Iowa, Prairie View A&M, Florida A&M, Eastern Illinois, New Hampshire. That is a Big 12 program, a top 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. And that's who they're playing. They're playing 3 HBCUs, the worst team in the Big East, a rivalry game against a high major that they play every year, a D2 transitional school, one of the worst teams in the Pacific Northwest, and a really bad Green Bay program. Like, that team is bad.
Eastern Illinois and New Hampshire, also not great shakes.
No, Eastern's been bad for a while. You're a Big 12 school, and that is what you can muster? You couldn't find anyone better for a non-conference game? You couldn't play, like, Tulsa? You couldn't play Tulane? Like, even an American school, a Mountain West school? You're playing Lindenwood and 3 HBCUs? Are you kidding me?
It feels like a blinking neon sign that TJ Otzelberger's hanging out front of the Hilton Coliseum that says, I'm scared of my team.
Fraud.
We already know nobody peaks in November, December like TJ Otzelberger.
No.
His teams, man, you want to go get a win in December in the thick of the holiday season when the students aren't in session. TJ Otzelberger is the man you call. He's the guy.
They're going to beat Florida A&M so badly. They're going to look like a top 20 team, and then they're going to play real schools that's mean to Florida A&M. I'm sorry, Rattlers. But they're going to play high major programs in conference play and get their butts kicked.
They got a bunch of bye games here. There's no real road test. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Brendan, but DePaul, not exactly packing them into the Rosemont Horizon or whatever it is they play these days.
Excuse me. That is Wintrust Arena, which also happens to be the home of the Chicago Sky. And I think the crowds are rowdier for the Chicago Sky of the WNBA than DePaul basketball.
Well,
Sky
have been good.
Yeah, they won a title a couple of years ago.
A lot more recently than DePaul men's basketball. Yeah, this is really bad. And he's got a young team, right? They've got we talked yesterday about the danger of leaning on freshmen unless they are blue chip freshmen. Iowa State's going to be leaning on some freshmen. Now, they got a good class. This Omaha Bill U kid can play.
Yeah.
And no, that's not where he's from. That's his name.
Yeah.
Omaha Bill U. They got another pretty well-regarded freshman coming in whose name is escaping me at the moment. But
I know who you're talking about. I don't have his name either, but I'll pull it up for you.
They've got some young players that, like, you can make it make sense to me that, hey, maybe this isn't the year that we go out big game hunting in the non-conference. Maybe we blood in the youngsters and another heavy transfer class against a lesser non-conference schedule. But that is not this.
No.
This is beyond a lesser non-conference schedule. It's almost insulting. Like, you're paying, like, if I were an Iowa State season ticket holder, this is what I'm paying for?
Like, I don't want to go watch them opening night against Green Bay.
These are the games I get in November and December?
By the way, I think you were thinking of Milan Momcilovic.
That's exactly correct.
From Pewaukee, Wisconsin.
Yes. I knew it was a European sounding name.
And like Baylor in recent years, even when they were winning, like contending for the national championship, they played a really weak schedule. Now, last year that changed. Baylor's schedule last year actually was tough. Virginia, UCLA, Marquette, Gonzaga, Washington State. Like that's a better non-conference schedule. But this has led me to a belief that the Big 12 should have a required number of high major teams or a required non-conference net or KenPom baseline for all of its teams. If Brett Yormark wants to steer into our basketball is the best basketball, and we're going to prove that we're the best basketball, there should be a minimum number of high major programs, or, maybe the threshold is, American and Mountain West level mid-major that all Big 12 schools should have to play. I'm not saying that Iowa State should go and schedule like KU every year, because KU has had a very clear goal every year that Bill Self has been there.
Iowa State isn't KU. And they shouldn't schedule like KU. But they shouldn't schedule like this.
They should schedule like K-State at least.
Yeah, they shouldn't schedule like Omaha.
Right.
They shouldn't schedule like a Horizon League school, because that's what this is.
Right. 100% agreed. Like, there should be a baseline for quality of non-conference, because can't you just hear it right now that we're going to get to March 17th or whatever, and it's going to be Selection Sunday, and an 8 seed, we got to go to Sacramento? What are you talking about? We won 24 games this year. You played 3 HBCUs, dude. You make more in a day on ticket sales than their whole department is funded before they get these bye games. Like, there's going to be complaints about their non-conference schedule. Their KenPom non-con schedule ranking is going to be in the 250s this year, and you're going to hear complaints about it come Selection Sunday.
They get 13 games, and the flip side of it is they better win 12 of those 13. They better, they better be 12-1 going into Big 12 play. Otherwise, forget about them as an NCAA tournament team unless they win the league.
Their non-conference MTE, their multi-team tournament, it's not awful, but it's not like Murderer's Row. It's the ESPN Events Invitational at Disney World. Boise State, Butler, Florida Atlantic, which should be pretty good this year.
Yes.
Iowa State, Penn State, which just lost all of its good players and its head coach. Texas A&M, VCU, Virginia Tech. That's not bad.
No, they'll play a couple good teams there, probably, unless they lose their opener, and then they might end up playing nobody.
Right. Like, they might end up playing Boise State and Butler, which I think Boise State's fine, but they're not great.
It's been a decent program in the Mountain West.
I to avoid this, I genuinely think if the Big 12 wants to do the whole we are better than everybody and we're going to prove it, I think you should prove it against more than DePaul. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. You should have to play, and I know those HBCUs need those games. Like,
right,
that floats their athletic department for a year.
And And KU's playing one. KU opens the season against North Carolina Central. That's an HBCU.
Typically, Kansas State has played one every year. Like, those games are valuable. Those are important games, like, very literally valuable to those HBCUs. I'm not saying you have to get rid of all of those games. It can't be a 25% of your non-conference schedule is the SWAC.
No, that can't be. In fact, Alcorn State gave K-State a run a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Gave them a real good game at Bramlett Coliseum. Right around the holiday. Like, there's room for those games. There should also be room to, sort of Florida A&M, play Florida State.
And you should want those games. And if you don't want those games, what it suggests, what it looks like is you're scared of those games.
And
that you're running from the grind, which TJ Otzelberger, Mr. Creatine, doesn't feel like he has ever run from the grind. But this schedule is fleeing from the grind.
Mister, are you sure you need a medium? I think you could fit a large, TJ Otzelberger. Let's get to a quick break. When we come back, we'll preview tonight's series opener between the Royals and Guardians here on 580 Sports Talk.
Attention.
Brendan and Dan here with you. It's 580 Sports Talk on a Tuesday afternoon. Royals baseball coming up tonight. Pregame at 6:30, first pitch at 7:10. We're back tomorrow from 3 until 6. Tim Fitzgerald will stop by for the Wildcat wrap-up. We'll recap tonight's Royals game and plenty more. By the way, if you missed any of the show so far today, you can either head to YouTube, rewind the live stream, or check out anything from our back catalog of shows, or head to our website, 580wibw.com, go to the podcasts tab, click on 580 Sports Talk, and that's where you'll find the hour-by-hour breakdown version of the show. Tonight, 6:30 pregame again, 7:10 first pitch between the Royals and the Cleveland Guardians at Kauffman Stadium. It'll be Brady Singer on the hill for the Royals, Gavin Williams for the Guardians. For Williams, it will be his second ever Major League appearance in his first outing, which came last Wednesday. Wasn't especially good, but again, just, his first appearance ever. 5 2/3 innings, 4 earned runs, did give up a homer, walked 3, struck out 4. So not, again, great, but first outing, you can live with that. And now he gets to face the Royals, which sometimes is a great elixir for pitchers. But no, I mean, this is exciting from a baseball perspective that, hey, you get to see a guy who might end up being pretty special. At least the scouts believe he's going to be pretty special.
Yeah.
And if you're a Royals fan in particular, maybe you think, hey, first couple outings jitters, maybe he'll be a little bit tense. He's on the road. Maybe we're playing kind of well recently. Maybe we can hit this guy around a little bit.
So I have watched a little bit of Guardians baseball this year. We have a bit of a tie. Eli Morgan's parents, Eli Morgan, the right-hander reliever veteran for the Guardians. His parents are family friends. His dad and my dad go way back. So I do follow them with a little bit of interest. Eli's having a nice year, 1.67 earned run average.
Yeah.
And 32 1/3 out of the Cleveland pen. But the thing that stands out when you watch this team is just how miserable they are to watch at the plate, because they don't strike out. In fact, they have struck out the fewest times of any American League team, but they don't hit the ball with any authority. They're dead last in home runs. So it's just a parade of like weak ground balls and fly balls. Like the idea is you want to put the ball in play, right? This is a team built to do that. They are that is who the Guardians scout. That is who they develop. They want guys who don't strike out, contact hitters, put the ball in play. But the quality of contact matters too. And outside of Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor, they just don't have a whole lot of thump. Like, I thought Josh Bell was a good addition for them.
Mm-hmm.
He's OPSing 704 with just 7 home runs. Like, I thought that would be a much better addition. Former K-Stater Will Brennan has played quite a bit this year. The former Kansas State Wildcat. It's his rookie season, so some struggles could be expected. He doesn't strike out, but he's also only walked 6 times in 202 plate appearances, and is carrying an OPS below 7.
You want the bat on the ball? He's going to put the bat on the ball.
Damn right. You know why I'm here. Their backup catcher,
I just saw this,
is an old friend, former Royal Cam Gallagher. He's 12 for 84 on the year. Wow,
it's like he's never left.
With 4 extra base hits and 3 walks. He has an OPS of 370. That's almost Jackie Bradley Jr.-esque.
Wow. You know who their third catcher is? Another old friend, Mabrice Valoria.
I don't think he's on the 40-man any longer. They may have outrighted him off the 40-man.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
I don't know where old Mabrice has kicked around and ended up anymore.
Mabrice Valoria.
He's only 26.
Wow.
Looks like he's in the Angels system. Looks
Okay.
like the Angels have picked him up, and he is currently, maybe not currently, with the Salt Lake Bees.
Oh yeah, they're AAA affiliate.
They're AAA affiliate.
They just had a dude who. It was Joe Adell, who at one point in time was a big time prospect for the Angels.
Yeah,
he had a 500-foot home run the other day.
Yeah, he did
in Salt Lake City.
Check that. We have breaking Mabrice Valoria news. Within the last day, he agreed to a minor league deal with the Orioles. So he is in his 3rd organization of 2023.
Well, how about that?
So
good for Mabrice Valoria.
Nickname El Fresco.
Oh, that's a sick nickname.
That's a dope nickname, man. You don't get that nickname if you're not literally cool.
How about an El Fresco? Looking at the regular 9 from Baseball Reference for the Guardians, like just looking at the stats, you can tell this team is not very pleasant to watch. Even if, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, just unpleasant. They've got 2 guys with an OPS plus over 100. Jose Ramirez doing his thing. OPS plus of 142. That's really good. Josh Naylor, 123. That's quite good as well. And then you've just got a bunch of guys lingering around 90. Like Josh Bell, 98. Will Brennan, 92. Stephen Kwan, 94. Andres Jimenez, 94. Ahmed Rosario's at 82. Like, just a lot of, do I have to? Like, that's the lineup of, do I have to watch this?
And their value is almost exclusively in their batting average because they don't walk a lot and they don't hit for any power. So, yeah, it's a weird lineup. And if you're Brady Singer tonight, that kind of has to be your approach is, look, I'm not going to strike these guys out. I have to locate my fastball. I have to locate my sinker. They're going to put the bat on the ball. I have to induce weak contact. Think inducing weak contact. So, as ever for Brady Singer, the sinker command is of utmost importance. But I think tonight, maybe simplifying his approach against a team that isn't going to swing and miss a whole lot, maybe that's helpful for him. And maybe he can have a good outing in his first time out against Cleveland this season.
Let's set the number at 4.5 changeups. How many changeups will Brady Singer throw today?
Well, let me think on that, because he's gonna. Their lineup isn't out, but they are pretty left-handed. Bo Naylor started playing a lot more behind the plate. He's left-handed.
Josh's brother.
Yep. Josh is left-handed. Jimenez is left-handed. Quan is left-handed. Brennan's left-handed. Ramirez and Bell both switch hit. So he's going to see a lot of left-handers.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a day to dust off the old changeup and throw it a little bit more often.
They do have their lineup up, in fact. Did you say they didn't have their lineup up?
I wondered if they did.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure they do. I mean, first pitch, an hour away.
Yeah.
An hour and change, yeah.
So, yeah, Quan leading off, Rosario, Ramirez, Naylor, Bell, Jimenez, Brennan, Straub, the other Naylor, and, yeah, all in support of Williams. I don't know. I mean, I would like to say, yes, I'm hopeful that the Royals end up winning this game, but I just said 2 hours ago that I don't really have any faith in Brady Singer as a starter anymore, which sucks because it's just, we've seen it. We've seen him get to the brass ring. We have seen him grab the belts that are at the top of the ladder, hit the glass ceiling, whatever you want to say, but there just hasn't been a moment where he's proven that he's here, I guess. And that's hard, and that sucks for him. And for me, because I have to watch it, to be frank. What were you going to say?
Just that, his last start, only 8 base runners in 7 innings, but 5 of them came around to score. Like, it's been a season like that for him, that even in the games where he's limited traffic, it's been a lot of loud contact and extra base hits that mean that those base runners are more likely to score. So, yeah, that's what you want to avoid against a Cleveland team that's going to make a lot of contact. You want to keep keep that sinker out of the happy zone. Make sure it's moving. Keep it on the corners and try and do some weak contact. That's the ticket to beating the Guardians. So hopefully Singer can do that. If it's a good Brady Singer day, I think he has a chance.
Coming up at 6:30, we've got Royals pregame on the Royals Radio Network. First pitch is set for 7:10. Brady Singer on the bump for the Royals. All that is coming up after some overtime at the top of the 6 o'clock hour. But before we get there, we've got one more time out here on the show. We'll come back, finish things up on 580 Sports Talk with the final word.
Attention, Kansas parents and
Time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk on June 27th, Dan.
I got to be careful not to work myself into a shoot,
brother.
But, I might be in on the Pepsi Cola Chub.
No!
I might be in.
Oh.
At least on trying it as a concept. Soda-infused ketchup. I might be in on the concept just to try. And if it sucks, I'll be the first one to say so. But I'm not scared.
I am.
I would try Pepsi Chup. I would try Coke Chup. I would try Dr. Pepper Chup. I would draw the line at Mountain Dew Chup. That's a no from me.
Oh God, I couldn't do it. Did you say Dr. Pepper? Was that one of the ones you said you would do? Yeah, I'll pass on the weird pop ketchups. But if you ever get to try it,
I will. You will get a full
you.
review on this program if I ever get to try it.
Final word for me as we inch closer to this year's edition of the basketball tournament. I believe the final piece of the KU alumni team roster was revealed today. LeGerald Vick, who for about 3 weeks was the best player in college basketball. This team is pretty much running back the 2018-2019 Kansas team. Dedrick Lawson, Devon Dotson, LeGerald Vick.
That's what the game been missing.
Yeah, that's really what we needed. But hey, they've played together before. Maybe that ends up helping. But LeGerald Vick going to wear crimson and blue one more time. Sign me the hell up for that. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. Royals baseball is coming up at the top of the 7 o'clock hour following pregame and 580 Sports Talk overtime. We're back tomorrow from 3 until 6. For Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Thanks as always for listening to 580 Sports.